The building had its nighttime voice, a low hum in the vents, a distant elevator bell, the soft tick of a sprinkler system cycling somewhere above the ceiling tiles. Harper Lane sat alone inside a glass conference room at Cole and Arbor Creative. The lights dimmed to emergency mode. Chicago glowed beyond the windows, and Lake Michigan was a dark sheet on the horizon. On the table in front of her, a hospital invoice lay open beside her laptop. Balance due 18/7/40/26, due date 7 days. Her phone buzzed again. Harper turned it face down and kept her eyes on the paper, as if staring hard enough could erase the number. She had ink on her fingers from sketching in the margins of her notes. Little shapes, logos, anything that kept her hands busy. She rubbed her thumb against her forefinger and left a faint black smudge on the invoice. Her laptop chimed. From Diane Lane. Hi, honey. Nurse says I might go home next week. Please do not worry about bills. Please sleep. Love you. Harper read the email once, then again. Her mother wrote like that even when she was scared, polite, and careful, as if her illness was an inconvenience to everyone else. Harper closed the message without replying. Her throat felt tight and dry. If she answered, she might say she was drowning. A shadow crossed the glass wall. Ethan Cole stood in the doorway, already in a suit tie, centered hair neat. He looked like he belonged to the architecture. In his hand was a slim folder, the kind people carried when they expected a signature. You're still here, he said. Harper snapped her laptop shut halfway. I'm finishing work. I need you in my office. Harper slid the invoice under her notebook and followed him into the hallway. The agency was empty awards gleaming in the dark like trophies in a closed museum. Ethan's footsteps were quiet on the polished floor. He walked as if he had places to be, even when the building was asleep. His office faced the lake. Tonight, the water looked like metal under a black sky. Wind pushed against the windows in steady, patient taps. Ethan closed the door. The click was small. It still sounded final. He set the folder on his desk and opened it. This is not about your work performance. Harper stayed standing. That is a relief. Ethan slid a single page toward her. Marriage agreement. Harper stared at the heading until her eyes stung. She did not touch the paper. Is this a mistake? It is not. Harper let out a short laugh. Do I call HR or a priest? Ethan's expression did not change. I need a wife. Outside wind pressed the glass again, and the building answered with a soft groan. Harper kept her voice even. You have a legal team, a publicist, a family office. Pick someone who wants this. My grandmother is dying, Ethan said. The words were clean controlled. Only his jaw tightened, like the sentence scraped on the way out. Harper swallowed. I'm sorry. He nodded once. Evelyn Cole. Evie if you want her to like you. She wrote the trust that holds the family voting rights. She also wrote a clause. I must be married to receive controlling interest. Harper stared at him. She put your inheritance behind a wedding ring. She put my responsibility behind it, Ethan said. In her mind, it proved stability. On paper, Harper says it. Ethan held her gaze. On paper. Harper glanced down at the agreement. Neat paragraphs, boxes for initials, a signature line waiting at the bottom, like an open mouth. How long? She asked. 12 months. And then we divorce quietly, Harper said, and pretend it never happened. Yes. The answer was too quick, too practiced. Harper folded her arms. Why me? Ethan did not look away. You are competent. You are discreet. You do not gossip. You do not panic easily. I'm a person, Harper said, not a solution. Ethan's eyes flicked over her face, as if he was calculating the risk of saying the next thing. You have been pushing for creative director. Harper felt her stomach tighten. Yes, you deserve it. You will get it, Ethan said. Effective immediately, with a bonus and a salary adjustment. Harper forced her expression to stay flat. Her mind did the math without permission. Hospital bills, meds, time. Ethan watched her anyway. He did not smile. He did not act triumphant. He looked tired, like this was the only door left open. Harper's voice came out quiet. My mother needs treatment I cannot afford. I know, Ethan said. Harper went still. How? Emergency contact forms, insurance paperwork. It is on file, Ethan said. He paused. I'm not using it as leverage. It feels like leverage, Harper said. Ethan's gaze held. It is reality. You need money. I need this clause satisfied. We can help each other without pretending it is anything else. Harper looked down again. She imagined her mother in a hospital bed smiling while she struggled to breathe. She imagined the nurse's careful tone when she said, "We'll see what insurance decides." Harper lifted her eyes. "I have conditions." Ethan nodded once. "Name them." My own room, a door that locks. Accepted. No physical contact unless it is required in public, Harper said. And you ask first. A faint tension showed in Ethan's brow. Accepted. And your son? Harper added. At the word, Ethan's posture sharpened. Not hostile, protective. Ben is 6, he said. He is my priority. Harper glanced at the framed photo on his desk. A boy with dark hair and serious eyes standing in front of a planetarium display, one hand on a model rocket. What does he get out of this? Harper asked. Ethan's voice lowered. He gets stability. He gets adults who do not break promises in front of him. And if he asks me if I'm his mother, Harper said, I will not lie to him in a way that hurts later. Ethan held her gaze for a beat, then nodded. Agreed. Harper drew a breath. Do we share a bed? For the first time, Ethan looked surprised, a real flicker that made him seem less like a suit and more like a man. No, he said. The penthouse has guest rooms. You will have privacy. Harper stared at the paper again. The words cohabitation and confidentiality, in there like they belonged to a contract, not a life. Ethan reached into his desk drawer and set a fountain pen beside the signature line. Black lacquer, gold nib, heavy. It was my grandmother's, he said. She likes watching people sign things. Harper's fingers hovered over it. Her palms were damp. On the corner of the desk sat a small paper rocket folded from plain printer paper, its nose bent, one wing creased. It did not match the office. It did not match Ethan. Ben made that, Harper said. Ethan's eyes flicked to it. Yes. Harper picked up the pen. It felt too expensive for a room that suddenly felt too small. She held it over the page and hesitated, the nib hovering. Wind struck the windows again, low and hollow. The lake beyond was restless and dark. Harper lowered the pen and signed her name. Harper Lane. Careful. Even. No flourish. She set the pen down. Her fingers were stained darker now. Ethan signed beneath hers, precise and quick, as if his hand had done this 1,000 times. He capped the pen with a soft click and slid the paper back into the folder. Move in tomorrow, he said. A car will come for you at 9. Harper nodded. She could not trust her voice. She turned toward the door and stopped with her hand on the knob. Ethan was watching her, steady and unreadable, like he was waiting to see if she would bolt. Harper opened the door and stepped into the quiet hallway. The agency felt colder outside his office. The lights hummed. Somewhere a janitor's cart squeaked. Harper walked past the window that faced the lake. City lights shimmered on the water like scattered coins. She rubbed her ink-stained thumb against her forefinger, feeling dried pigment flake away. Her breath fogged the glass for a second, then cleared again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Harper kept walking, until the hallway opened into the lobby and the night air hit her when the front doors slid apart. The wind off the lake carried a wet metallic chill that crept into her coat sleeves. She paused on the sidewalk and looked back at the building, at the lit window that had been Ethan Cole's office, now just another bright square among hundreds. She pulled out her phone and called the hospital before she could talk herself out of it. A tired voice answered. Harper gave her mother's name, listened, nodded at facts no one could soften. Stable, resting, medication adjusted, the same careful language, the same quiet threat beneath it. When she hung up, her fingers were still stained with ink. She rubbed them together until the skin warmed, and the black smudge blurred, but it never really went away. She did not sleep much. She lay on top of her comforter in her small Logan Square apartment and stared at the ceiling fan as it turned slow and uneven. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the signature line waiting for her like a bright strip of ice. At 7, she showered, dressed, and packed like she was leaving for a short trip. She chose practical things first. Work clothes. A worn sweater that still smelled faintly like her mother's laundry soap. She opened the drawer with the photo she kept face down and stared at it for a moment without touching it. Her father's smile in the picture looked like something someone had practiced in a mirror. Harper turned the photo over again and shut the drawer. At 8:30, she stopped at the hospital with a bag of mandarins and a paperback her mother liked. The nurse at the desk recognized her and gave her a look that tried to be kind without promising anything. Diane Lane was propped up in bed, pale but tidy hair, brushed lips tinted with a soft pink she insisted on wearing. She smiled when Harper walked in, the smile that always arrived first, like a reflex. "Hi, honey," her mother said. "Smibish." Indebted. "You look tired." "I am fine," Harper said, and set the fruit on the tray table. She leaned down and kissed her mother's forehead. The skin felt warm and too thin. Diane reached for Harper's hand. Her fingers were cool damp at the tips. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little." Her mother's eyes flicked to Harper's hands. "You have ink. still drawing the world into order. Harper looked down. The ink had settled into the lines of her skin. She turned her palm over as if the light might change what it meant. Diane squeezed gently. You do not have to carry everything alone. Harper forced a smile. I am not carrying, I am managing. Diane studied her in that quiet way that made Harper feel 12 again. You are my daughter, she said, not my bank. Harper inhaled and tasted antiseptic and oranges. She chose her words carefully, like stepping around glass. Something at work is shifting. It might help with the bills. Harper. I said might Harper cut in too fast. She softened her tone. It is a good thing. That is all. Her mother watched her for another beat, then nodded once as if agreeing to let the lie stand, because it was holding Harper upright. Bring me pictures of the lake, Diane said. I miss water. Harper's throat tightened. I will. When she left, she stood in the elevator with a stranger and stared at her reflection in the polished metal wall. Her eyes looked clear. Her mouth looked set. She looked like someone who had already decided. At 9, a black car waited by the curb outside her building. The driver stepped out, opened the trunk, and took her suitcase without speaking. Harper slid into the back seat and watched her neighborhood pass brick and graffiti, the corner bakery with the fogged window. The bus stop where she had once stood in the rain with her mother, both of them laughing at their own stubbornness. Downtown rose up glass and steel. The lake appeared between buildings like a moving sheet of slate. The car turned into a private drive and stopped beneath a canopy of stone and light. The lobby smelled like polished wood and citrus. The doorman greeted her by name. Harper felt the syllables land on her skin as if someone had pinned a tag to her. The elevator opened directly into Ethan Cole's penthouse. The first thing she noticed was the quiet. Not the empty kind, but the insulated kind, the kind money bought. The second thing was the view. Lake Michigan stretched wide gray-blue under a pale sky. The wind made the water look restless, like it was trying to pull the whole city toward it. Ethan stood near the kitchen island jacket off sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked less formal than last night, but not softer. A mug sat in front of him, black coffee, a single thin line of steam. You're early, he said. The car was on time, Harper replied. She set her bag down and let her eyes scan the room without meaning to. Everything was clean, sharp arranged. Even the fruit bowl looked staged. Ethan nodded toward the hallway. Your room is down there, second door on the left. Harper picked up her suitcase handle again. I can manage. I know, he said. The words did not sound like praise. They sounded like an acknowledgement of gravity. She walked down the hall and found a guest room that looked like a high-end hotel. White bedding, a vase with a single branch, a closet that could swallow her entire apartment. In the corner, a desk faced the window. On the desk sat a small lamp and a folded note card. Welcome. There was no signature. Harper set her suitcase on the bed and stared at the note until she felt her chest loosen a fraction. She turned back into the hallway. A door opened across the hall. A boy stepped out barefoot wearing a shirt with planets on it. He held a paper rocket in one hand and a small flashlight in the other, like he was searching for something in broad daylight. His hair was dark and slightly too long in the front. His eyes were steady and serious. He looked at Harper without blinking. You are Harper, he said. Harper had expected a hello. She had expected shyness or noise. She got a statement like he had already decided facts mattered more than manners. Yes, she said, and you are Ben. He lifted the flashlight a little, the beam cutting across her shirt, her hands, her face. He was not shining it to be rude. He was studying her as if light might reveal truth. My dad said you are his friend, Ben said. Harper kept her voice calm. That is true. Ben frowned. Friends do not live here. Harper did not answer right away. She looked at the paper rocket. The nose was bent just like the one in Ethan's office. Ben noticed her looking and tightened his grip. It is Apollo 11, he said. It looks fast, Harper said. Ben's mouth twitched, almost a smile, almost not. It is not finished. I need tape for the wings. My dad uses the good tape and he hides it. I do not hide tape, Harper said. I am more of a leave it on the counter type. Ben stared at her, weighing the confession. Then he nodded once as if this told him something important. Are you staying a long time? He asked. Harper felt the question press against her ribs. She could have given him the easy lie. She could have said yes and let the future clean up the mess. She saw her father in that drawer photo smiling like he was always going to be there. I am staying for now, she said. I will not disappear without telling you. Ben looked down at the rocket, then back at her. Okay. Behind them, Ethan appeared in the hallway. He had stopped far enough away that Ben would not think he was listening, but Harper could tell he had heard every word. His face was neutral, but his eyes had that tight focus he got in meetings, the kind that meant he was trying to control the outcome. Ben, Ethan said you have schoolwork. Ben lifted the flashlight again. I already did the math. I am checking the rocket. Ethan's mouth pulled slightly at one corner. Then check in your room. Ben turned to Harper. Do you want to see the star map on my ceiling? Harper glanced at Ethan. Ethan gave a small nod as if granting permission for a normal moment. I would like to, Harper said. Ben led her into his room. The walls were painted a calm gray, but the ceiling was dotted with glow stars arranged in patterns. A small telescope sat by the window. Books about space were stacked in uneven towers. On the bed, a stuffed dog in a tiny astronaut suit lay on its side, abandoned mid-mission. Ben clicked off the flashlight and pointed up. That is Orion. That is Cassiopeia. That is the Big Dipper. Harper tilted her head back. The stars were faint in daylight, but she could see them scattered, carefully placed by a child who wanted the sky to stay where he could reach it. You did this yourself, she said. My dad helped, Ben replied, quick to correct. But he put the stars wrong at first. I fixed it. Harper smiled despite herself. Good thing you were there. Ben's gaze shifted to her hands again. You draw, he said. Harper flexed her fingers. Sometimes. My dad says people who draw can see things before they happen, Ben said. Harper looked at him. Does he? Ben shrugged like he did not care, like he cared a lot. He says it when he is trying to sound like he is not worried. Harper felt something twist gently inside her. She nodded as if she understood because she did. In the kitchen later, Ethan cooked with the efficiency of someone who had taught himself. He chopped vegetables in even cubes. He seasoned without tasting. Ben perched on a stool and narrated his rocket progress. Harper washed her hands at the sink until the water ran clear. The ink remained a faint shadow. You can eat with us, Ethan said, not looking up. Harper took a seat at the edge of the island. The stool felt high like a witness stand. Ben slid a plate toward her as soon as dinner was served. He did it with careful formality, like he was hosting. My dad makes chicken that is not dry, he informed her. I appreciate that, Harper said. Ethan set his own plate down. It can be dry. He is biased. Ben frowned. It is not dry, he insisted, and took a bite as if to prove it. Harper tasted the chicken. It was good. It tasted like someone trying. She ate slowly, listening to the rhythm of their ordinary conversation. School. A science project, a teacher who mispronounced Jupiter. Ethan asked questions and waited for answers. Ben spoke like he was used to being heard and not interrupted. When Ben finished, he carried his plate to the sink without being asked. Ethan watched him with an expression that shifted just for a second into something warmer. Harper saw it and looked away as if she had caught something private. At 8, Ethan walked Ben down the hall to brush teeth. Harper heard water running, heard Ben's voice rise and fall, heard Ethan's low replies. The sounds filled the penthouse in a way the furniture never could. Harper stood by the window and watched the lake darken. Clouds rolled in from the east, heavy with snow that had not started yet. The wind pushed the water into small, sharp waves. Ethan returned a few minutes later and held out a small box. Your key card, he said, for the elevator in the building. Harper took it. Thank you. A pause stretched. You handled him well, Ethan said. Harper looked at the key card in her palm. I answered what he asked. That is not what most people do, Ethan replied. Harper turned toward him. He was standing near the island, hands braced on the counter, his shoulders slightly tense like he was ready for impact. You said he does not need people who break promises, Harper said. Ethan's eyes flicked up. Yes. Harper kept her voice steady. Then do not ask me to be a promise you cannot keep. Ethan held her gaze for a long moment. His face did not soften, but something in it shifted like a muscle unclenching. I did not choose you to hurt him, he said. Harper's stomach tightened at the word choose. Why did you choose me? Ethan looked away toward the windows, toward the lake that never held still. Because you do not beg, he said. You do not perform desperation. You show up, even when you are bleeding quietly. Harper's throat went dry. That is not a compliment. It is not meant to be, Ethan said. Then after a beat, I am sorry. The apology sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Harper turned the keycard over once. Does your grandmother know my name? Yes, Ethan said. She asked for it. And she is really dying, Harper said. Ethan's jaw tightened again. Yes. Harper nodded slowly, like she could accept the word, even if she did not want it. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the same fountain pen from last night. He set it on the counter between them. She will want to see the ring. Not tonight, not yet, but she will. Harper stared at the pen, at the gold nib catching the overhead light. A quiet pulse of panic moved through her chest. She kept her face calm. I told you, she said. Ask first. Ethan's gaze dropped to her hands, then back to her eyes. I will. For a moment, neither of them moved. The apartment felt too large, the silence too clear. Then Ethan nodded toward the hallway. "Your room," he said. "If you need anything, ask." "Ben wakes sometimes," I heard Harper said. Ethan's eyes flicked up. He did not look embarrassed. He looked like he had been caught caring. Harper went to her room and shut the door. She leaned her back against it and let out a slow breath through her nose. The quiet inside the guest room was different from her apartment. Too perfect. Too controlled. She opened her suitcase and unpacked with methodical movements. Shirts on hangers, jeans folded, toothbrush in the bathroom cup. On the desk by the window, the welcome card sat under the lamp. Harper turned it over. Blank. No signature, no flourish. Like Ethan had wanted the gesture without the attachment. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the lake. The wind had picked up. A thin line of whitecaps broke along the surface. A soft knock came at her door. Harper stood and opened it. Ethan was there holding something in his hand. A paper rocket smaller than Ben's, folded from plain office paper. "I found this in my desk," Ethan said. Harper took it carefully. The creases were old, the paper softened from being handled too often. "Ben's." Ethan nodded. "He left it the day he visited the office for the holiday party. He asked where you were. He had seen you in the lobby." Harper felt a strange warmth flare, and then tighten like a string pulled too fast. "He asked about me." "He said you looked like you knew where you were going," Ethan replied. Harper looked down at the rocket in her hand. Its nose was bent the same way as if the world always hit the front first. Ethan's voice lowered. "Ben does not attach easily." Harper kept her eyes on the paper. "Neither do you." Ethan did not deny it. He stood in the doorway, not crossing the threshold, like he was respecting a line that mattered to him more than he would admit. Harper turned the rocket once between her fingers. "I told him I would not disappear." Ethan's gaze held. "Good." Harper lifted her eyes. "Do not make me regret that." Ethan's mouth tightened, and for the first time his controlled expression looked like something close to pain. "I will not," he said, but the words sounded like he was convincing himself too. He stepped back. "Sleep," he added softer. "The building is loud at night. The wind makes the glass complain." Harper almost smiled. "I noticed." Ethan nodded once and walked away down the hall. His footsteps faded into the quiet. Harper closed the door and held the paper rocket against her palm until it warmed. Then she set it on the desk beside the welcome card, like a small guard on duty. She lay down and listened. Somewhere across the hall, a child's voice drifted through a half-closed door, faint and sleepy. Ethan answered in a low murmur. The words were indistinct, but the tone was steady, patient, anchored. Harper closed her eyes and let that sound settle into the room. Her phone buzzed at midnight. One new email. From Executive Assistant. "Reminder, Evie Cole requests your presence at the Cole Foundation fundraiser. Attire formal." Harper stared at the screen until her eyes blurred. Then she set the phone down face down, the way she had done the night before. The lake wind pressed against the window, firm and insistent. And Harper lay still in the dark, feeling the shape of her signature like a bruise she could not stop touching. Harper woke before the alarm, the kind of awake that did not feel like rest. The penthouse was dim and still. Somewhere down the hall, water ran for a few seconds and stopped. The building settled into itself with faint creaks like an old ship that never fully trusted calm weather. Her phone lay on the nightstand face down exactly where she had put it. She flipped it over and read the email again. "Evie Cole requests your presence." Harper sat up and stared at the lake through the window. Gray light lay over the water. The wind made the surface look rough, like someone had dragged a hand across it and left scratches. She dressed for work out of habit, then stopped and changed into something softer. Jeans, a sweater. She tied her hair back and walked to the kitchen. Ethan was already there, coffee in hand, sleeves rolled, jaw tight. He looked like he had been awake for hours, even if he had not slept. His eyes flicked to her phone when she set it on the counter. "You saw it," he said. Harper nodded, formal. "Yes." He took a sip of coffee and set the mug down carefully, as if the sound mattered. "The Cole Foundation fundraiser? It is at the Art Institute tonight." Harper opened her mouth, then closed it again. She wanted to ask why Evie had requested her by name. She wanted to ask how many people knew. She wanted to ask if she had made a mistake signing anything that had an address attached to it. Instead, she said, "Do we have a story?" Ethan's gaze stayed steady. "We met through work. We kept it quiet. My grandmother does not like surprises. That is why it has to be convincing." Harper leaned on the counter and looked at him. "And a ring." Ethan's expression tightened. "Yes." Ben padded into the kitchen a moment later, hair sticking up, shirt inside out. He climbed onto his stool and looked from Harper to Ethan as if scanning for changes. "My teacher says there is a meteor shower this weekend," he announced. Ethan picked up a spoon and set it beside Ben's bowl. That is nice. Ben frowned. That is not an answer. Ethan blinked once, then shifted his attention fully to his son. What is the question? Will we watch it? Ben asked, from the balcony, with blankets. Harper watched Ethan's face soften around the edges just for a second. It happened the way weather changes over water. Quick, real. Then Ethan glanced at Harper, and the softness moved back behind his eyes, like he had noticed he was not alone. We will see, Ethan said. Ben's eyes narrowed. That is also not an answer. Harper hid a smile by reaching for a mug. Ben watched her and lowered his voice like he was sharing a secret. Are you coming to the fancy thing? He asked. Harper paused. The fancy thing. Dad gets mad when people talk too long, Ben said. Then he smiles with his teeth. Ethan's eyes snapped to Ben. Benjamin. Ben shrugged, unbothered. It is true. Harper met Ben's gaze. Yes, she said. I am going. Ben studied her for a long moment. Then he slid off the stool, disappeared down the hall, and came back holding a paper rocket, freshly folded, the wings sharp, the nose pointed. He held it out with both hands. For luck, Ben said, like he had heard the phrase somewhere, and decided to trust it. Harper took it carefully. The paper was warm from his palms. Thank you. Ben nodded once, satisfied, and went back to his cereal. Ethan watched the exchange without speaking. He looked like he was adding it to a file in his head, a list of things he had not planned for. A little after noon, a woman Harper had seen once on video calls arrived with a garment bag and a clipboard. Ethan's assistant Nora moved through the penthouse like she owned the air. Ms. Lane, Nora said, crisp and polite. Mr. Cole asked me to bring options. Options, Harper repeated. Nora unzipped the garment bag to reveal a dress, deep green, simple cut, the kind of fabric that caught light without begging for it. A second bag held heels. A small velvet box sat on top of the clipboard like punctuation. Harper's stomach tightened. This is a lot. Nora smiled with practiced neutrality. It is the foundation. That is the point. Nora set everything in Harper's room and left without asking if Harper needed help. The message was clear. The event would happen with or without comfort. Harper stood alone with the dress hanging on the closet door. She ran her fingers over the fabric, smooth and cool. It felt like stepping into someone else's life. Her phone buzzed with a call from the hospital. Harper answered and pressed the phone to her ear. Ms. Lane, a nurse said, Your mother is doing well today. She asked for you. Harper closed her eyes and pictured her mother's smile, the one that arrived first. Can I speak to her? Diane's voice came on, soft and bright. Hi, honey. Are you eating? Yes, Harper lied. Are you sleeping? A little. A pause. Harper could hear the machines in the background, the small beeping that became a rhythm you could not unlearn. Diane said, You sound like you are wearing your brave voice. Harper swallowed. I have a work event tonight. Wear something that makes you feel like yourself, Diane said. Harper looked at the dress and almost laughed. I will try. Send me a picture of the lake, Diane added, quieter. I will, Harper said, and meant it this time. In the late afternoon, Harper stood in front of her mirror and tried to make her face look calm. The dress fit perfectly, which felt like another kind of pressure. She pinned her hair back, then let it down, then pinned it again. She put on simple earrings and hesitated with the necklace Nora had brought, a thin line of diamonds that looked like ice. A knock came at her door. Come in, Harper said. Ethan stepped inside and stopped, as if he had walked into a room that was not his. He wore a tuxedo that made him look sharper, cleaner, like a version of himself, designed for public consumption. For a moment, he did not speak. His gaze moved over her dress, her hair, the line of her throat. You look, he started. Harper's hands went still. Expensive. Ethan's mouth tightened, almost a smile. You look right. Harper lifted her chin. Right for your grandmother. Ethan crossed the room and held up the necklace. Turn around. Harper turned the fabric of the dress, whispering against her legs. She felt Ethan's fingers at the clasp, cool and careful. His knuckles brushed the back of her neck. Harper breathed in and caught the scent of his cologne, faint and restrained. He did not linger. The clasp clicked shut. The diamonds settled against her skin, cold at first, then warming. Ethan stepped back. His eyes met hers in the mirror. His expression was controlled, but something in his gaze tightened, like he had to remind himself why the necklace existed. Harper turned and faced him. Where is the ring? Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and opened the velvet box. A simple band, white gold, a single stone that caught light without flashing. It looked like it belonged on a woman who had always known how to enter rooms like this. Harper stared. I cannot accept that. It is not a gift, Ethan said. It is a prop. Harper held out her hand anyway. Her fingers were steady, which surprised her. Ethan slid the ring on. His thumb pressed lightly to her knuckle, a touch that lasted a fraction too long. Ask first, Harper murmured. Ethan's eyes flicked up. May I? Harper's breath caught at the bluntness of it. Yes, she said, because refusing would feel like refusing the truth of her own pulse. Ethan released her hand as if it had burned him. We leave in 5. In the hallway, Ben waited in pajamas, clutching his astronaut dog. His gaze jumped to Harper's dress, then to the ring. He did not smile. He did not speak. He simply walked up and wrapped his arms around her waist, careful not to wrinkle anything. His head pressed into her stomach like he was checking that she was solid. Harper's hands hovered, then settled on his shoulders. Hey, she said softly. Ben pulled back and looked at the ring again. That is shiny. It is, Harper replied. Ben looked up at Ethan. Do not forget your teeth smile, he said. Ethan exhaled through his nose. I will try not to. Ethan knelt and adjusted Ben's collar, like Ben was dressed for the same event. Mrs. Chen will stay with you, Ethan said. You listen. Ben nodded, then turned back to Harper. Bring the rocket, he instructed. Harper touched the pocket of her coat where she had tucked the paper rocket. It is with me. Ben seemed satisfied. He went back to his room without another word, astronaut dog tucked under his arm like a companion on patrol. The car ride downtown was quiet. The city slid past the windows in bands of light. Harper watched pedestrians huddle against the windscarves, pulled up, shoulders hunched. Ethan stared straight ahead, hands folded once on his knee, as if he had practiced sitting still. Harper broke the silence. Tell me about her. My grandmother, Ethan said. Yes. Ethan's jaw moved slightly before he spoke. She likes people who do not flinch. She asks questions that sound simple. Do not answer fast just to fill space. Harper nodded. Anyone else? Ethan's gaze remained forward. Scarlett will be there. The cousin. She is my cousin, Ethan corrected. She works as if the company is already hers. Harper glanced at him. You do not trust her. Ethan's voice stayed even. Trust is not a habit in my family. The Art Institute rose up like a lit stone ship. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and old varnish. Harper's heels clicked on marble. Voices layered together laughter and greetings and the soft clink of glass. Ethan placed his hand at the small of her back, light guiding. Harper felt the heat through the fabric of her dress and the steadiness of the gesture. People turned, eyes flicked, smiles sharpened with curiosity. A man Harper recognized from the board shook Ethan's hand too long. Cole, he said, you have been hiding a wedding. Ethan's smile appeared, teeth included. Not hiding, he said, protecting. His hand tightened slightly at Harper's back, as if to claim her without saying the words. Harper lifted her chin and returned the board member's smile with practiced ease. A woman in a red gown approached, cheekbones, sharp eyes, bright and cold. Scarlett Cole. Ethan, she said, as if tasting the name. Then her gaze slid to Harper's ring, held there a beat too long. And you must be Harper. Harper's skin prickled. Yes. Scarlett leaned in for a cheek kiss that never quite became contact. Welcome, she said softly. We were beginning to think Evie would have to haunt you to get you here. Ethan's smile stayed in place, but his eyes went flat. Scarlett. Scarlett's smile deepened. Cousin. Harper felt the word cousin land like a warning. Scarlett turned her attention back to Harper. I hope you like art, Scarlett said. The Foundation loves collecting beautiful things. Harper kept her voice calm. I like what people make when they believe someone will see it. Scarlett blinked once as if she had not expected an answer with teeth. How lovely, she said, and drifted away with her glass, leaving perfume in her wake. Ethan's hand moved from Harper's back to her elbow. He guided her through the crowd toward a smaller room lined with portraits. In the center, seated in a chair that looked like it had been chosen to make her seem smaller, sat Evie Cole. Harper had expected frail. She saw a woman with silver hair pinned neatly back and eyes sharp enough to cut silk. Evie's hands rested on the arms of the chair, still composed. A thin shawl lay over her shoulders like an afterthought. Beside her stood a nurse in a black suit, not a uniform, a guard. Ethan approached and leaned down to kiss Evie's cheek. Grandmother. Evie touched his face with 2 fingers, like she was verifying that he was real. You look tired, she said. Too young to look tired. Ethan's smile softened just slightly. I am fine. Evie's gaze shifted to Harper. It did not feel like being looked at. It felt like being measured. So Evie said, this is the woman. Harper stepped forward. Mrs. Cole. Evie's mouth tightened. Evie, she corrected. Mrs. Cole is dead. I am still here. Harper held Evie's gaze and nodded once. Evie. Evie's eyes flicked to Harper's ring. You wear it correctly, she said. Harper felt Ethan's fingers find hers. His hand was warm, his grip steady. Evie looked at their hands. You did not tell me you married, she said to Ethan. Ethan's shoulders stayed relaxed, but Harper felt the tension in his fingers. We wanted privacy. Evie's eyes narrowed. You wanted control. Harper inhaled slowly. The room smelled of flowers and expensive wax. Somewhere nearby, a string quartet played something airy and polite. Harper spoke before the silence could harden. We met at the agency, she said. We worked together. We kept it quiet because it was ours. We did not want it to become a subject for other people. Evie watched her for a long moment. Harper did not look away. She did not smile too wide. She let her face stay honest. Evie's gaze moved back to Ethan. Do you love her? Harper felt her pulse jump quick and sharp. The question was not theatrical. It was blunt, like a doctor asking where it hurt. Ethan's hand tightened on hers. He turned slightly toward Harper, and when he spoke, his voice lowered. Yes, Ethan said. Harper looked at him. His eyes held hers, steady, unreadable, and for a second she could not tell where acting ended. His thumb brushed the side of her finger, a small movement that felt like a confession or a lie. Evie studied Ethan's face, then Harper's. Good, she said softly. He needs someone who does not let him hide. Ethan's breath caught almost imperceptible. Evie lifted her chin. You will have a proper ceremony, she said. Family present, vows spoken, a marriage that exists beyond gossip. Ethan's posture stiffened. Grandmother. Evie's gaze cut. Do not argue with me at my fundraiser. A flicker of amusement passed through Harper, brief and dangerous. She pressed her fingers against Ethan's, grounding herself. Evie's attention returned to Harper. Will you do this? She asked, as if Harper's answer mattered more than Ethan's. Harper's mouth went dry. She heard Ben's voice in her head, serious and small. Do not disappear without telling me. Harper kept her expression calm. If it is important to you, she said, then yes. Evie's eyes softened barely. Good, she repeated. Then she tilted her head. Bring the boy to see me tomorrow. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Ben has school. Evie waved a hand. School will survive. I want to see him. He needs to see you settled. Harper felt Ethan's hand tighten again, but he nodded. Yes, he said. Evie leaned back in her chair, satisfied. The nurse shifted subtly, and Harper understood the audience was over. As Ethan guided Harper away, the crowd swallowed them. People smiled and leaned in hungry for details. Ethan answered with practiced phrases. Harper nodded at compliments and kept her shoulders square. Scarlett appeared again near the dessert table, as if she had been waiting for a gap in the crowd. She held a flute of champagne and smiled at Harper. Evie approves, Scarlett said. That is rare. Harper kept her tone polite. She is perceptive. Scarlett's eyes glittered. So are you. I have heard you have a talent for patterns. Harper's chest tightened. I work in creative, she said. Scarlett's smile did not move. Creative people see what others ignore. Sometimes they see numbers too. Ethan appeared at Harper's side, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. His hand settled at her waist, firm, possessive, in a way that was not entirely for show. Scarlett, Ethan said, voice smooth, enjoy the gala. Scarlett's gaze slid to his hand, then back to Harper's face. I am enjoying it, she said. It is always interesting when something new enters the collection. Harper held Scarlett's gaze. I am not an object, she said quietly. Scarlett's smile widened by a fraction. Of course, she murmured, then turned away like the conversation had been about weather. The drive home was quieter than the one downtown. Ethan stared out the window at the city lights reflecting on wet streets. Harper sat with her hands in her lap, fingers brushing the ring, as if checking it was still there. Ethan spoke once they were near the lake again, where the wind sounded louder against the glass. She pushed for a ceremony, he said. Harper did not look at him. She did. Ethan's voice dropped. I did not expect her to ask you directly. Harper stared at the dark water beyond the roadway. She did not ask you. She already knew your answer. Ethan's jaw tightened, and yours. Harper turned the paper rocket in her coat pocket, with 2 fingers feeling the crisp folds. The car moved through the night, smooth and silent, while the lake kept striking the shore with small, impatient sounds. By the time the car rolled into the private drive, the lake had disappeared into a smear of darkness. Harper's heels clicked on stone as she followed Ethan through the lobby, past the doorman's polite smile, into the elevator that rose without a sound. The doors opened to the penthouse, and warmth met her face. Soft light, the faint smell of lemon polish, the kind of quiet that made you aware of your own breathing. Mrs. Chen stepped out of the hallway, like she had been waiting for the exact second they arrived. She was in her 60s, hair pinned back, cardigan neat. Her eyes moved over Harper's dress, the ring, the necklace, then to Ethan's face. Ben is asleep, she said. Ethan loosened his bow tie. Thank you. Mrs. Chen's gaze lingered on Harper. Not unfriendly, not welcoming, just attentive, like she was learning the rules of a new arrangement without being told. Good night, Mrs. Chen, Harper said. Mrs. Chen nodded once. "Good night, Ms. Lane." The title felt strange. Ms. Lane, not quite wrong, not quite enough. When Mrs. Chen disappeared into the service hall, the penthouse seemed larger. Harper took one careful step, then another, as if the marble might crack under the wrong thought. Ethan moved toward the kitchen, poured a glass of water, drank half of it in one swallow. He set the glass down too hard. The small sound echoed. Harper slipped off her heels and flexed her toes against the cool floor. The ring sat heavy on her hand. The diamonds at her throat had warmed, but she could still feel the line of them when she breathed. Ethan spoke without looking at her. "You handled her well." Harper walked to the island and rested her fingertips on the edge, anchoring herself. "Your grandmother does not speak like she needs permission. She speaks like she owns the air." Ethan's mouth pulled, almost amused. "She does." Harper's eyes drifted toward the hallway. "She wants to see Ben tomorrow." "Yes, and you agreed." "I did," Ethan said. He rubbed a hand over his jaw, the gesture tired and human. "I do not say no to her often. When I do, it does not go well." Harper studied him. The tuxedo made him look carved and formal, but the tightness around his eyes was not for show. He looked like someone holding an invisible weight in both hands. She kept her voice careful. "Do you want me there?" Ethan turned, then slow. His gaze met hers. "Yes," he said, "if you can." Harper nodded once. "All right." A pause settled. Ethan's eyes flicked to her necklace. "You can take that off." Harper touched the diamonds. "It was cold when you put it on." Ethan's gaze held for a beat too long. "It was not meant to be comfortable," he said quietly. Harper did not know if he meant the necklace. She looked down, slid the ring a fraction up her finger, then let it fall back into place. "I should sleep," she said. Ethan's shoulders eased like he had been waiting for a reason to end the night. "Good," he replied. "Ben wakes early." Harper turned toward the hall, then stopped. "Ethan." He looked at her. "Thank you," she said, and the words surprised her as they left her mouth. She meant it for the promotion, for the money, for the contract. That was also a lifeline. She also meant it for something she could not name without making it real. Ethan's expression tightened, then softened by a degree. "Good night, Harper," he said. In her room, Harper undid the necklace clasp with trembling fingers. She set it in its velvet box and stared at it like it might start speaking. She washed her hands, scrubbed at the faint ink lines still hiding in her skin creases. It did not fully lift. It never did. She lay down and stared at the ceiling. The building made its low nighttime sounds again. Distant pipes, a faint elevator chime far below, wind pressing at the glass. Somewhere down the hall, a child sighed in his sleep, a soft sound that tightened Harper's chest and made her blink hard in the dark. Morning came in pale bands. Harper walked into the kitchen and found Ethan already dressed, tie in place, hair neat, coffee poured. He looked like he had snapped back into the version of himself the world trusted. Ben shuffled in behind him, rubbing his eyes, astronaut dog tucked under his arm like a shield. He saw Harper and paused. "You are still here," he said. Harper held his gaze. "I said I would be." Ben's shoulders dropped a fraction like he had been bracing for disappointment, and did not need to, at least not today. He climbed onto his stool and began eating toast without speaking. Ethan watched Ben for a moment, then turned to Harper. "She lives in Gold Coast," he said. "A townhouse. There will be staff. A nurse. People who pretend they are not listening." Harper sipped coffee and nodded. "Understood." Ben looked up. "Is Great-Grandma Evie wearing her blue scarf?" Ethan's expression shifted warmer. "Probably." Ben chewed thought, then asked Harper, "Do you know how to tie a scarf so it looks like a cape?" Harper swallowed a smile. "I can learn." Ben nodded, satisfied, and went back to his toast. The car took them along the lake. Wind scratched the surface into white caps. Ben pressed his face to the window and traced shapes on the glass with his fingertip. Harper watched his small hand, the way he drew circles and lines as if making his own map. Ethan spoke quietly. "She will test you." Harper looked at him. So did Scarlett. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Scarlett tests everyone. Evie tests for different reasons." "And what reasons are those?" Harper asked. Ethan's gaze stayed on the road. "She wants to know who will stay when things become unpleasant." Harper felt the words settle into her stomach like a stone. She looked at Ben in the back seat, at the curve of his cheek, pressed to the window, at the astronaut dog's ear sticking out from under his arm. The townhouse smelled like old books and expensive soap. A fireplace was lit even though the room was already... The light made the wood paneling glow. Evie sat in a high-backed chair, a blue scarf around her neck, exactly as Ben had predicted. Her eyes flicked to Harper first, then to Ben. Ben walked straight to her unafraid and held up his paper rocket like an offering. "I made this," he announced. "It is Apollo 11 again, but better." Evie's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to be a gift. Better, she repeated. That is a dangerous word. Ben frowned. Why? Because it means you can always do more, Evie said. Ben considered that. Okay, he replied, as if the danger was acceptable. Evie reached out and took the rocket between 2 fingers. She examined it like it was an artifact. Then she handed it back to Ben and tapped his knuckles lightly. Good hands, she said. Ben brightened. I have tape now, he informed her. Harper does not hide tape. Harper held her posture steady. Ethan's eyes flicked to her a quick glance that held something like surprise. Evie's gaze returned to Harper. So, she said, you keep your promises. Harper did not rush her answer. I try, she said. I know what it feels like when people do not. Evie's eyes narrowed. Explain? Harper inhaled once. My father left when my mother got sick, she said. I learned that nice words do not matter if someone disappears. The room seemed to quiet. Even the fire crackled softer. Ethan's face went still, but his hand moved. He did not touch Harper. He placed his palm on the arm of the chair beside her, close enough that she could feel heat from him without contact. Evie studied Harper's face for a long moment. Then she turned to Ethan. And you, she said, do you still think you can control everything? Ethan's jaw tightened. No. Evie's gaze sharpened. Do not lie to me. Ethan breathed in slow. I do not control everything, he said. I control what I can. Evie's eyes flicked to Harper again. And what can she control, she asked, like Harper was not sitting there. Harper kept her voice calm. My choices, she said. My work. The way I speak to your great-grandson. Evie's mouth twitched. Good, she said. Then softer. He needs a woman who does not coddle him and does not abandon him. Harper felt Ben lean against her legs, small and solid. She put a hand on his shoulder, a simple touch that did not ask permission, because it was not for show. Ben looked up at her for a second, then turned back to Evie as if he had merely been checking that the room was stable. Evie's eyes went to Harper's ring. It fits, she said. Harper nodded. Yes. Evie's gaze lifted. Does it fit your life, she asked. Ethan's posture sharpened. Harper could feel him listening not as a CEO, not as a grandson, but as a man with something on the line he could not pretend away. Harper held Evie's gaze. Not yet, she said. Evie watched her, then nodded once like she had been given a truth she could work with. Good, she said again. I dislike women who pretend they are comfortable when they are not. Ben tugged lightly on Harper's sleeve. Can I show Great-Grandma my star map, he asked. Evie waved a hand. Yes, show me your sky. Ben led Evie's nurse toward the hallway to fetch something talking the whole time. Ethan watched his son go with an expression that was almost softness, almost gratitude. Harper stood near the fireplace, hands clasped. Evie's gaze remained on her. He likes you, Evie said. Harper did not deny it. He is easy to like. He's easy to like. Evie's eyes sharpened again. That is not what I said. Harper's throat tightened. I know. A beat. Evie's voice lowered. Ethan hides pain behind manners, she said. He learned it from his mother. He learned it from me. Do not let him use you as a wall. Harper felt the warning like a touch. I do not intend to, she said. Evie nodded once. Then, as if to release the tension, she added, also do not let Scarlett speak to you as if you are furniture. Harper blinked. She does that to everyone. Evie's mouth curved slightly. Yes, she said, because people allow it. When Ben returned with a folded poster of constellations, Evie listened to him with full attention. She asked him questions. She corrected him once gently. Ben leaned closer to her chair, animated alive. Harper watched Ethan watch them. The moment lasted only minutes. Then Evie's nurse stepped in and touched Evie's shoulder. Evie's hand trembled just a little when she lifted it. Enough, Evie said. Ben's face fell for a second. Evie tapped his hand. You can come back, she told him, when you have more sky to show me. Ben's shoulders straightened. He nodded solemnly as if receiving a mission. On the way out, Ethan paused at the doorway of Evie's sitting room. Evie held his gaze. Do not waste time, she said. Ethan's jaw moved. I am not, he replied. Evie's eyes flicked to Harper. Then treat her like she is real, Evie said, and the words hit the room like a dropped glass. Harper did not look at Ethan. She kept her face steady until they were outside, until cold air cleared her lungs. In the car, Ben talked about constellations, as if nothing heavy had happened. Ethan drove with both hands on the wheel, knuckles pale. Harper sat in the passenger seat and watched the city slide by. After Ben was dropped at school, Ethan and Harper went to the office. Work became the refuge it always was for Harper, the place where effort had a direct result. Meetings, decks, brand language, deadlines that did not care about rings or vows. Ethan kept his distance at the agency. He spoke to her like a colleague. He called her Harper, never sweetheart, never anything that might sound like the truth. But he watched her, when he thought she was not looking. Harper noticed anyway. At home, the penthouse filled with small domestic noises. Ben's shoes kicked off by the door, the click of the dishwasher, Ethan's quiet footsteps and socks, which felt oddly intimate, like seeing a man without armor. One night, Harper found a roll of clear tape on the counter. She picked it up and turned it in her hands. A paper rocket sat beside it, half-finished wings unbalanced. Ben appeared at her elbow. "I need it to fly straight," he said. Harper sat with him at the island. She held the rocket steady while he taped the wing's tongue, peeking out in concentration. His hands were small but precise. Ethan came in midway through, jacket tossed over his arm, tie loosened. He stopped in the doorway and watched without speaking. Ben did not look up. "Dad," he said, "Harper says the wings have to match." Ethan's gaze moved to Harper's fingers holding the paper. "She is right," he said. Ben made a satisfied sound and kept taping. Harper glanced up and met Ethan's eyes. He looked like he was seeing something he wanted and did not know what to do with it. When Ben finally held up the finished rocket, he smiled wide, a rare crack in his serious mask. "It is perfect," Harper said. Ben's smile faltered into a question. "Will it stay perfect?" Harper hesitated. "It will get dense," she said honestly, "but it can still fly." Ben looked down at the rocket, then nodded slowly, as if accepting the terms of the universe. Later, after Ben was in bed, Harper stood on the balcony with a blanket around her shoulders. Wind pushed at her hair. The city sounded far away, muted by height and glass. Ethan came out with 2 mugs. He handed one to Harper without speaking. Ginger tea, the kind she had once made for her mother in a too-hot kitchen. "How did you know?" Harper asked. Ethan leaned his elbows on the railing. "Mrs. Chen told me. She said you drink it when you are trying not to be upset." Harper looked at the mug warmth seeping into her palms. "Mrs. Chen notices everything." "Yes," Ethan said. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the lake. The wind was stronger tonight. It made the glass panels hum faintly. Ethan spoke first. "Ben asked if you would be home for dinner tomorrow." Harper's chest tightened. "What did you say?" "I said yes," Ethan replied. Harper's head snapped slightly toward him. "You said yes without asking me?" Ethan's eyes stayed on the water. "You have been here every night." "That does not mean you get to decide," Harper said. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You are right." The admission surprised her. It should not have, but it did. Harper breathed out slowly. "I am going to the hospital tomorrow," she said. "It is my weekend to sit with my mother. I bring her books. She pretends she can read. I show her pictures of the lake because she asked." Ethan's gaze flicked to her, then quick. "How is she?" Brave, Harper said. "Polite, tired." Ethan nodded once, as if storing the words. "Ben asked about your mother," he said. "He wanted to know if she likes space." Harper's throat tightened. "Does he know she is sick?" "He knows hospitals," Ethan said quietly. "He knows people can leave without leaving." Harper gripped the mug tighter. The warmth was not enough. Ethan's voice lowered. "He is getting attached," he said. Harper did not move. "I know." Ethan's eyes stayed on the lake, but his shoulders looked tense, like he was bracing for a hit he could not block. "He has not done this before," Ethan said. "Not with women who visit. Not with coworkers. Not with anyone." Harper swallowed. Maybe he is just being friendly. Ethan's mouth pulled in something close to a grim smile. "He asked Mrs. Chen if she thinks you like pancakes. He asked me if your toothbrush is the blue one or the white one. He asked if your shoes are comfortable because your feet looked hurt after the fundraiser." Harper blinked hard. Her eyes stung. "He is observant. He is hungry for consistency," Ethan said. The wind rose, shoved against the glass with a deeper sound. Harper felt it in her bones. She looked at Ethan, and for a second the CEO mask was thin enough to see the man beneath the father, the child who had once learned not to trust a door staying shut. Harper spoke softly. "I told him I would not disappear." Ethan's gaze shifted to her hand to the ring, then back to her face. "And if I end this," he said, and the words sounded like they scraped what happens to him. Harper's breath caught. She could feel the question behind the question. What happens to you? What happens to me? She set the mug on the balcony table and wrapped her arms around herself. "I do not want to hurt him," she said. Ethan's voice was quiet. "Neither do I." They stood there, both of them, staring at the lake as if it held an answer. Wind whipped Harper's hair across her cheek. She did not brush it away. Inside, a soft sound came from the hallway. A small shuffle, a door opening. Ben stood in the balcony doorway in pajamas, astronaut dog tucked under his arm. He blinked against the light and looked from Harper to Ethan. "I had a bad dream," he said, voice small. Harper's chest tightened. She opened her arms without thinking. Ben crossed the room and pressed into her face against her sweater, breathing fast like he had run. Harper stroked his hair. "You are safe," she said softly. Ben's shoulders shook once, then steadied. He pulled back and looked at Ethan, then at Harper again. Can we do the blankets, Ben asked, for the meteor shower thing, even if it is cold? Ethan's throat moved as he swallowed. He looked at Ben, then at Harper. His eyes held something raw for a second, a silent plea, a silent fear. Harper knelt to Ben's height and brushed a thumb over his cheek. We can do blankets, she said. Ben nodded satisfied and yawned, the bad dream already fading. Ethan stepped forward and lifted Ben easily, cradling him against his chest. I will put him back, Ethan said. Harper watched them disappear down the hall. The astronaut dog's little helmet bobbed with each step. On the balcony table, Ben's paper rocket sat where Harper had set it earlier. Wings taped carefully, nose pointed toward the dark lake. The wind nudged it just slightly, and it did not fall. The next evening, Ben insisted on blankets. He dragged 2 from the linen closet with the seriousness of a rescue mission and piled them on the living room floor. Mrs. Chen raised an eyebrow at the mess and said nothing. Ethan dimmed the lights. Harper turned off her phone. They went to the balcony in socks. The air hit Harper's face like cold water. The lake was black and restless, the wind loud enough to make conversation feel like work. Ethan spread one blanket on the outdoor sofa and lifted Ben onto it. Ben tucked his astronaut dog under his chin and stared up at the sky as if he expected it to open. Do you see any? Ben asked. Harper leaned back and looked. The city's glow washed out most stars, but a few held on sharp and stubborn. I see some, she said. Ben pointed with a gloved hand. That one is Vega, he announced. That one is Altair. Ethan watched Ben's face more than the sky. Harper watched Ethan's hand the way it stayed near Ben's shoulder, ready to steady him, ready to catch. A thin streak of light scratched across the darkness. Ben inhaled so hard his whole chest lifted. There, he whispered. Did you see? Harper's smile came fast, unguarded. I saw. Ben's eyes shone. He shifted closer until his shoulder pressed into Harper's arm. Harper did not move away. She felt Ethan's gaze on her, quiet, heavy. She kept looking at the sky. Another streak. Smaller this time, like a spark kicked off a blade. Ben clapped once, then pressed his hands together and held still, as if loud joy might scare the sky away. The wind rose and tugged at Harper's hair. Ethan reached out and tucked a strand behind her ear. The touch was brief. It still made Harper's breath catch. Ethan withdrew his hand like he had forgotten to ask permission, then looked at her. Sorry, he said. Harper swallowed. It is fine, she replied, and did not know if she meant the words or the feeling. Ben yawned, the wonder wearing him out. Ethan lifted him and carried him inside, blanket wrapped around his small body like a cape. Harper followed, closing the balcony door against the wind. In Ben's room, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, while Ben arranged his astronaut dog at the pillow. Ben's eyes were half closed, but his mouth stayed busy. Great-Grandma Evie said you will have vows, Ben murmured. Ethan's shoulders tightened slightly. Did she? Ben nodded without opening his eyes. She said vows are like promises you say out loud, so you cannot pretend you forgot. Harper stood in the doorway, arms folded, feeling the sentence settle in her chest. Ben squinted at Harper. Do you know vows? Harper kept her voice soft. I have heard them. Ben's gaze slid to the ring on Harper's finger, then to Ethan. He looked like he was building a question he was not sure he wanted to ask. Ethan stood. Sleep, he said gently. You have school. Ben's eyes closed fully. Okay, he whispered. Do not forget. Ethan brushed Ben's hair back, once slow and careful. I will not, he said. In the hallway, Ethan paused. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. She talks to him, Harper said. She talks to everyone, Ethan replied. His voice lowered. Ben repeats what sticks. Harper looked down at the ring and rotated it once. Her skin beneath it felt too warm. When is the ceremony? Ethan exhaled through his nose. This weekend, he said. Door County. Harper stared. Wisconsin. Yes, that is fast. Ethan's mouth tightened. It is my grandmother. Harper nodded once. She understood speed when time was running out. The next day, Nora arrived with a folder thicker than Harper's notebooks in college. She placed it on the island and opened it like she was unveiling a case file. Schedule, Nora said. Departure Friday afternoon. Arrival at the lake house by sundown. Dinner with family. Ceremony Saturday. Brunch Sunday. Harper glanced at Ethan. Your grandmother planned this in a day. Ethan looked at the folder like it offended him. In an hour, he corrected. Nora slid another envelope toward Harper. Fittings, she said. I have arranged a tailor, also a hair appointment. Harper's throat tightened. I can do my own hair. Nora smiled. You can. Evie prefers you do not. Ethan's expression flickered. A hint of apology passed through his eyes, then vanished behind control. You do not have to do anything you do not want, he said, but the sentence sounded like a technicality. Harper placed her palm on the folder, feeling the smooth paper. I agreed to be convincing, she said. Not comfortable. Nora's gaze moved to Harper's ring and back to her face. Convincing is comfort, Nora replied, then turned to Ethan. Evie expects a rehearsal of the vows. Ethan's jaw tightened. There is no rehearsal. Nora's smile stayed. Evie expects it. Ethan stared at the lake for a beat, then nodded once. Fine, he said. After Nora left, the penthouse felt quieter, as if she had taken a layer of air with her. Ethan poured coffee. Harper stood at the window with her phone in hand, debating whether to call her mother. She hated lying. She hated the truth even more. Ethan spoke without turning. Tell me what you need. Harper looked at him. I need to see my mother before we go. Ethan nodded. Go. Harper's voice caught. I will be gone Saturday morning too. The hospital has a consult. Ethan's gaze held steady. We will work around it, he said. The words sounded like a promise. Harper did not trust it. She did not trust herself for wanting to. That Friday, Harper visited the hospital with a bag of peaches and a photo printed from her phone. The lake at dawn, gray and wide, the water textured by wind. Diane Lane took the photo and held it like it was fragile. Beautiful, Diane. Harper sat in the chair beside the bed. The vinyl squeaked under her weight. It is cold there, she said. You have color in your face, Diane observed. That is new. Harper forced a smile. Maybe the lake air is doing it. Diane studied her. Or maybe someone is. Harper's stomach tightened. Mom. Diane's hand reached out and covered Harper's light as paper. I do not need details, she said. I need you to tell me you are safe. Harper swallowed. I am safe, she said. Diane's eyes narrowed slightly, not unkind. Are you alone? Harper stared at the blanket folded at the end of the bed, the hospital logo stitched into the fabric. She thought of Ben's small body, wrapped in a blanket cape. She thought of Ethan's hand near Ben's shoulder, always ready. No, Harper admitted. Diane nodded once, as if she had expected the answer. Then remember, you deserve kindness, she said quietly. Harper blinked hard. I have to go out of town for work, she said instead. Diane's fingers squeezed once. Call me, she said. Not an email, a call. I will, Harper promised. When Harper returned to the penthouse, suitcases stood by the door. Ben sat on the floor beside them, lining up 3 paper rockets like they were a fleet. His astronaut dog watched from the couch. Ben looked up as Harper came in. Are you coming? He asked. Yes, Harper said. Ben stared at her, serious as a judge. Do you have the ring? He asked. Harper lifted her hand. The ring caught the light. Yes. Ben nodded, satisfied, then held up the smallest rocket. This one is yours, he said. Harper took it. The paper was folded neatly, edges sharp. She slipped it into her coat pocket. Thank you, she said. Ethan watched the exchange silent. His eyes followed the rocket to Harper's pocket, then returned to Ben's face, then to Harper again. The drive north took them out of the city and into open sky. Ben fell asleep halfway, head tipped against the seatbelt, mouth parted. Ethan drove with one hand on the wheel and the other resting near the gear shift, relaxed only by degrees. Harper watched the landscape change. Flat fields, bare trees, a pale sun that looked exhausted. She felt the ring against the steering wheel when she adjusted the air vent. It was always there, a weight, a reminder. Near Door County, the air smelled different. Pine, cold water, wood smoke. The lake house sat back from the road lights glowing in the windows. The driveway curved through trees that creaked in the wind. Harper stepped out of the car and felt the cold bite her cheeks. Ben woke up the moment the car door opened and looked around like he was checking for danger. Inside the house was warm and loud, not chaotic, but alive. A cousin Harper did not recognize hugged Ethan too hard. A woman with silver earrings complimented Harper's dress and looked at her ring twice. Someone laughed near the kitchen, sharp and bright. Scarlett stood by the fireplace with a glass of wine, as if she had been waiting in that exact spot to see Harper arrive. Welcome to the family, Scarlett said. Harper returned the smile politely. Thank you. Scarlett's gaze slid to Ben, who had moved closer to Harper's side. He is handsome, Scarlett said. Ben stared at Scarlett without smiling. I know, he replied. Scarlett blinked, then laughed softly. Confident, she said. Ben looked at Ethan. Is she the one who collects beautiful things? He asked. Ethan's mouth tightened. Ben, he said quietly. Harper hid a smile by smoothing Ben's hair. Ben leaned into her touch for a second, then pulled away like he remembered he was supposed to be tough. Dinner stretched long. Evie did not appear. Staff moved in and out with quiet plates and steaming bowls. People asked Harper questions that sounded friendly and felt invasive. How did you meet a man asked? At work, Harper said. And you never told anyone, a woman added, delighted. Harper's smile stayed steady. We wanted privacy, she said. Across the table, Ethan's gaze met hers, once held for a beat, then shifted away. Later, Scarlett cornered Harper near the kitchen when Harper reached for a glass of water. You are good at this, Scarlett said softly. Harper kept her tone even, at drinking water. Scarlett's smile did not reach her eyes, at not flinching. Harper took a sip. I flinch, she said. I just do it later. Scarlett's gaze moved to Harper's hand. That ring is lovely, she said. It is a prop, Harper replied. Scarlett's eyebrows lifted. How honest, she murmured. Be careful with honesty in this family. Before Harper could answer, Ethan appeared beside her, close enough that Scarlett's smile sharpened with satisfaction. Ethan's hand settled at Harper's waist, firm, deliberate. Harper felt the touch through her dress and tried not to lean into it. Scarlett, Ethan said. His voice was smooth. Evie asked for Harper. Scarlett lifted her glass slightly. Of course, she said. Evie gets what she wants. Upstairs, Evie's room smelled of lavender and medicine. She sat in a chair by the window, blue scarf around her neck, eyes bright. Her nurse stood nearby, arms folded. Evie's gaze swept over Harper. Come closer, she said. Harper stepped forward, Evie's eyes fixed on the ring, then on Harper's face. You still look uncomfortable, Evie observed. Harper kept her voice calm. I am in someone else's house. Evie's mouth curved slightly. It is yours too now, she said. If you are real. Ethan's posture stiffened. Grandmother. Evie raised a hand. Do not protect her from me, she said. Then to Harper, show me your vows. Harper's heart thumped once hard. Now. Evie's eyes did not soften. Now. Ethan stepped forward. We did not write vows, he said. Evie stared at him like he had spoken nonsense. Then write them, she replied, or speak what is true. Harper felt Ethan's gaze flick toward her, warning and plea tangled together. Evie's voice lowered. Promises said out loud cannot be rearranged later, she said. That is why people fear them. Harper swallowed. Her palms were damp. She did not want to invent words that would cling to her mouth afterward. She looked at Evie and spoke slowly. I promise to be kind to Ben, she said. I promise not to make him earn affection. I promise to tell the truth even when it is hard. Ethan's breath caught quietly. Evie studied Harper's face. Then she looked at Ethan. And you, she said. Ethan's jaw tightened. He stared out the window for a beat as if the dark water might give him language. I promise to show up, Ethan said finally. His voice was low, rougher than Harper expected. I promise not to disappear behind work. I promise not to make my fear your problem. Harper felt the words land in her chest with a strange heaviness. Not romance, not performance, something closer to surrender. Evie nodded once. Better, she said. Tomorrow you speak them again, in front of witnesses. The next day arrived with a cold sun and wind that made the trees hiss. The ceremony was held in the back garden near the water. String lights hung between branches. Chairs were arranged in neat lines. The lake was visible through the trees, dark and moving. Harper wore an ivory dress Evie had chosen simple, and fitted sleeves that brushed her wrists. Nora pinned Harper's hair back and told her to breathe. Harper did. It did not help. Ethan waited near the small arch of pine boughs. He wore a dark suit, no tie. His hair was neat. His hands were clasped in front of him, like he was holding himself together. Ben stood beside Ethan in a tiny suit coat, his astronaut dog tucked under his arm. He looked severe, but his eyes were bright. When Harper walked toward them, the cold air filled her lungs. She heard the lake. She heard someone sniffle. She heard the faint click of a camera. Ethan's gaze met hers. His expression stayed controlled, but his eyes did something else. They held her like she was not a prop, like she was a person he had been waiting for. Evie sat in the front row, blue scarf tight around her neck, watching like a judge. Her nurse stood behind her, still as a shadow. Harper took her place across from Ethan. Ben looked up at her and reached out. Harper took his small hand. It was warm in her glove. Evie's voice carried in the cold. Speak, she said. Harper repeated the promises she had said upstairs. The words tasted different outdoors in front of people. They felt heavier, more permanent. Ethan spoke, his again voice, steady eyes fixed on Harper. Then the moment came that no schedule had mentioned. Evie lifted her chin. Kiss, she said, as if it was an order. Harper's pulse jumped. Her mouth went dry. She did not look at the guests. She looked at Ethan. Ethan leaned closer and spoke so softly only she could hear. May I? He asked. Harper could have said no. She could have insisted on distance. She felt Ben's hand in hers, small and trusting. She felt the ring on her finger cold against her skin. Yes, Harper whispered. Ethan's hand rose to her cheek, warm against the cold air. His touch was careful at first, a question. Then his lips met hers, gentle, brief. Harper responded without thinking. The kiss deepened by its own gravity. Ethan's thumb pressed lightly under her jaw. Harper's fingers curled into the fabric at his sleeve, steadying herself, steadying him. A murmur rose from the guests. Ben made a small, satisfied sound that might have been a sigh. Harper pulled back, first breath uneven. Ethan's eyes stayed on hers. For a second, the lake and the lights and the people blurred. There was only warmth and cold, and the sharp awareness of his hand still on her face. Ethan lowered his hand slowly. His knuckles brushed her skin as he let go. Harper felt the loss like a sudden draft. Afterward, the house filled with voices again. Congratulations, laughter, plates of food. Harper moved through it as if underwater. She smiled when spoken to. She accepted compliments. She kept her fingers off the ring so she would not reveal how fast her pulse still was. Scarlett found her near the dessert table where a cake sat under glass like an exhibit. Convincing, Scarlett said. Harper kept her smile polite. That was the goal. Scarlett's gaze flicked to Harper's hands. You have steady hands, she said. Do you also have steady eyes? Harper's spine tightened. What does that mean? Scarlett sipped her wine. It means Ethan has been busy, she murmured. He has been asking questions at the office. Quiet questions. Harper felt the room tilt slightly. About what? Scarlett's smile stayed delicate. Money, she said. Numbers. Patterns. Things that make men nervous when they realize they have missed them. Harper held Scarlett's gaze. If someone has done something wrong, they should be nervous, she said. Scarlett's eyes glittered. Be careful where you put your curiosity, she replied softly. Curiosity turns into evidence. Evidence turns into enemies. Before Harper could answer, Ethan appeared at her side. His hand settled at her waist again, firmer than before. Harper felt the pressure and wondered if he knew what Scarlett had said. Scarlett, Ethan said calmly, stop. Scarlett lifted her glass in a small salute. Family, she said, and walked away. Ethan turned to Harper. His voice was low. What did she say? Harper looked at his hand on her waist, then up at his face. His eyes were steady, but there was tension under them, like a wire pulled tight. She talked about money, Harper said. About you asking questions. Ethan's jaw tightened. She noticed. Harper's throat felt dry. Is it true? Ethan held her gaze for a beat, then nodded once. Yes, he said. I need to show you something when we get home. Harper's fingers brushed the small paper rocket in her pocket. She felt its sharp folds through the fabric. She nodded slowly, the cold air still in her lungs, the taste of Ethan's kiss still on her mouth. The drive back from Door County was quieter than the drive up. Ben fell asleep with his astronaut dog pinned under his chin, one hand still curled around the smallest paper rocket, like he was afraid it might wander off. The sky outside the window looked rinsed clean, pale, and cold. Fields rolled by in slow, empty bands. Harper watched them without seeing much of anything. Ethan kept both hands on the wheel. His shoulders stayed square. His face stayed composed. The only thing that gave him away was the way he swallowed too often, like the air was dry. Harper could still feel the warmth of his hand on her cheek from the kiss. It had been careful at first, permission and restraint. Then it had tipped into something else. Not wild, just honest. The kind of honest that made her want to put distance between herself and her own thoughts. She shifted in her seat and felt the paper rocket in her coat pocket. Its edges pressed lightly against her palm when she slid her hand in to check it was still there. Ethan glanced at her once, quick, like he had meant to, like he had decided not to. The city came back in pieces, a cluster of buildings on the horizon, a billboard, the lake dark again, wind roughening it into small, sharp waves. When they turned into the private drive, Harper felt her body exhale without her permission, as if the penthouse had started to register as a place she could breathe. Inside, Mrs. Chen met them with the same calm efficiency. She took Ben from Ethan with practiced arms and carried him down the hall without waking him. Harper stood by the door and watched Ben's socked foot swing slightly as Mrs. Chen walked away. You said you needed to show me something, Harper said. Ethan nodded. Come. He did not take Harper to the living room. He took her to a smaller office tucked behind the kitchen, a room she had not entered yet. The lights were dim. A desk faced the window. The lake beyond looked like a sheet of bruised steel. On the desk sat a laptop closed. Beside it, a stack of printed pages held down by a paperweight shaped like a smooth stone. Everything looked arranged, controlled. Ethan opened the laptop and entered a code without looking at the keyboard. The screen lit his face in pale blue. Harper took the chair opposite him and folded her hands in her lap so she would not touch anything before she understood the rules. Ethan pulled up a spreadsheet and turned the laptop slightly toward her. At first, it looked like any financial report. Vendor names, amounts, dates, cost centers. Harper's eyes moved across the numbers, letting them settle, letting her brain do what it always did when something did not add up. Then she saw it. The amounts were consistently just under a certain threshold, not random, not natural. A series of invoices at $49,500, another at $49,700, another at $49,820, all just below the line that would trigger an additional review. Harper looked up. Approval limit. Ethan nodded once. Anything over $50,000 requires a second signature. Harper's pulse steadied, sharpened. This was work. This was something she could hold without breaking. She leaned in. Show me the vendor list. Ethan clicked. A column expanded. Harper read names out loud, half to herself. Northline Consulting, Cedar Ridge Services, Lakefront Media Partners. She paused. Lakefront Media Partners is not in our approved roster. It is now, Ethan said. Harper's eyes narrowed. Who approved it? Ethan scrolled. A digital signature, a name, Scarlett Cole. Harper did not react outwardly. Inside, something cold slid down her spine. Ethan watched her face. I am not accusing her without proof, he said. That is why I asked you. Harper's voice stayed calm. You asked me because I am not family. And because you see patterns, Ethan said. Harper ran a finger along the screen without touching it, tracing lines in the air. This is not sloppy, she murmured. This is designed. Ethan's gaze held. That is what I thought. Harper sat back and looked around the room. A printer in the corner, a locked drawer, a pen cup with two pens placed parallel as if Ethan had lined them up. Do you have the raw invoices, she asked. Ethan pulled a folder from the drawer and slid it across the desk. Hard copies. Harper opened it. The paper smelled faintly of toner and dust. She flipped through pages, eyes moving faster now. Invoice layouts were nearly identical across vendors. Same font, same spacing, same phrasing in the description field. She tapped one line with her finger. This sentence is copied. Ethan leaned forward. What? Harper held up 3 invoices. Same wording, same misspelling, on 3 different vendors. Ethan's jaw tightened. So it is one person. Or one template, Harper said. Whoever built it did not bother to disguise their handwriting. Not on paper, on structure. Harper reached for a pen, then stopped. The pen cup had Ethan's neat pens in it too. Polished, too expensive. She went to her purse, pulled out her own cheap black pen and started marking the margins. Ink bled slightly into the paper fibers. It grounded her. She worked for an hour without noticing time. She built a list. Vendor, amount, date, approver, cost center. She circled repeating patterns. She drew arrows. She wrote questions in tight handwriting. Ethan stayed quiet. He answered when asked. He fetched coffee once and set it down beside her without speaking. He did not drink his own. At some point, Harper realized she was not wearing her ring. She looked down at her hand bare. She could not remember taking it off. She must have slipped it into her jewelry dish when she washed her hands earlier, like a reflex, like her skin had needed to breathe. Harper kept working anyway. When she finally leaned back, her neck stiff, Ethan's gaze was on her ink-stained fingers. You do this like you have done it before, he said. Harper rubbed her thumb against the side of her pen. I worked in compliance for a year after college, she replied. I hated it. I missed making things, but I learned how people hide. Ethan's eyes held something like respect. And how do they? Harper tapped the stack of invoices. They hide in boredom, she said. They count on no one caring enough to look twice. Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then set it face down without answering. Harper looked at him. Tell me about Scarlett's role. Ethan's voice stayed even. She oversees finance. She controls vendor approvals under a certain limit. She has access to almost everything. And motive, Harper said. Ethan's jaw flexed. She believes the company should be hers, he said. She believes I am temporary. Harper stared at the ink marks she had made. The lines looked like a map of someone's greed. Show me the bank transfers, she said. Ethan clicked again. Another tab, another set of numbers. Harper's eyes tracked the outflows. A set of recurring payments routed through a holding company, then into another, then another. Shell layers, Harper murmured. Ethan nodded. I cannot see the end point. Not from our internal records. Harper stared at a P.O. box addressed at the listed for one vendor. P.O. boxes are normal. She said. For some vendors, Ethan replied. Harper wrote the address down. Her pen scratched softly. "Do you have vendor onboarding forms?" she asked. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Yes. He stood, went to the file cabinet, and pulled out another folder. Harper flipped through until she found the signature block. Scarlett's digital signature again. But something else caught Harper's eye. A second name listed under emergency contact for one vendor representative. A man named Daniel Cross. The address was the same as a private condo building Harper recognized from a campaign shoot. High rent, high privacy. A place you did not list unless you lived there or wanted someone to think you did. Harper looked up slowly. "Daniel Cross," she said. Ethan's eyes hardened. Scarlett's partner. Harper felt the room tilt just slightly. Not surprise, confirmation. She closed the folder and set it down carefully, like it might explode. "This is enough to suspect," she said. "Not enough to accuse publicly without a clean chain of evidence." Ethan leaned forward. "What do you suggest?" Harper's mind clicked into steps. Secure copies, independent backup, documentation, minimal access, no loose ends. "We make duplicates," she said. "We store them somewhere she cannot reach." Ethan nodded once. Agreed. Harper hesitated, then added, "And we keep my access quiet. If she has someone watching logs, they will notice unusual pulls." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "You think she monitors access?" Harper's voice stayed calm. "If I were stealing, I would." Ethan sat back. "So what now?" Harper looked at the ink on her fingers. She thought of her mother's hand on hers, light as paper. She thought of Ben's serious face asking if she was still here. "We move carefully," she said. "And we do not underestimate how angry she will be if she feels cornered." Ethan's eyes stayed on her. "Are you afraid?" Harper almost laughed. "I have been afraid for years," she said. "I just learned how to function anyway." Ethan's mouth tightened. "This is not what you signed up for." Harper glanced at the blank spot on her finger, where the ring usually sat. "Neither was the kiss," she said softly, then wished she could pull the words back. Ethan's gaze flicked to her mouth. He did not speak for a beat. The quiet filled with lake wind and the faint hum of the building's heat. Then Ethan's voice came low. "No," he said. "It was not." Harper's pulse jumped. She looked down at the papers again, grateful for the refuge of numbers. "Send me digital exports," she said. "I will build a clean summary, something you can show without exposing everything at once." Ethan nodded. "Tonight." They worked until the clock read past midnight. When Harper finally stood, her back aching, Ethan walked her to the doorway of the office. "Lock your door," he said. Harper looked at him. "I always do." Ethan's gaze held, still. In her room, Harper washed her hands. Ink swirled down the drain in pale gray ribbons. Some of it stayed in the lines of her skin no matter how much she scrubbed. She found the ring in the jewelry dish and stared at it for a long moment before sliding it back on. The band felt colder than usual. At the agency the next morning, Harper moved through familiar halls with a new weight on her hand. People greeted her differently now, eyes lingering smiles, asking silent questions. She kept her head down and went to her office. A bouquet sat on her desk, white flowers, a card with neat handwriting. "Congrats, creative director." No signature. Harper did not need one. She knew Nora's precision. Harper set the flowers aside and opened her laptop. She began building a document the way she built brand stories, except this story was made of numbers and timing and quiet intent. She worked in bursts, screenshots, notes, cross-references. She labeled everything clearly like evidence in a case file. Her pen left ink marks on her legal pad, margins, thresholds, approval routes. She did not notice the time until a shadow fell across her doorway. Scarlett Cole stood there, in a tailored coat, hair glossy, lipstick perfect. She looked like she belonged in a boardroom and a magazine at the same time. "Harper," Scarlett said, smiling. "You have an office now." Harper rose slowly. Scarlett stepped in without asking and let her gaze wander over the desk, the open laptop, the legal pad, the pen with ink on Harper's fingers. "You work hard," Scarlett said. "I do," Harper replied. Scarlett's eyes slid to the ring. "And you married fast." Harper kept her voice neutral. "Evie likes efficiency." Scarlett laughed softly. "Evie likes control," she corrected. "So do I." Harper felt her pulse steady sharpen. "What do you want?" she asked. Scarlett tilted her head. "I came to welcome you properly," she said, "and to offer advice." Harper waited. Scarlett's smile stayed pleasant. "Be careful," she said gently. "This building remembers who opens which doors." Harper's fingers curled once around her pen. "Do you monitor doors now?" Scarlett's eyebrows lifted slightly. "I notice patterns," she said. "It runs in the family." Harper held her gaze. "Patterns can be useful," Harper replied. "Sometimes they show you where money goes." For a split second, Scarlett's smile froze. It returned just as quickly, smoother than before. "You are bold," Scarlett murmured. Bold can be charming. Bold can also be misunderstood. Harper did not blink. I prefer clarity, she said. Scarlett leaned closer, voice still soft. Clarity is dangerous when people have spent years investing in fog, she said, then straightened and glanced around the office as if taking in the view. Congratulations again. When Scarlett left, the air felt different. Harper sat slowly and stared at her screen without seeing it for a moment. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Are you all right? Harper's fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed. Scarlett visited. The response came quickly. Do not be alone after work. Harper stared at the words. She should have felt protected. Instead, she felt something tighter, something that made her want to push back. She typed, I can handle myself. A pause, then another message. I know. Let me handle the part that should never touch you. Harper's throat tightened at the sentence. It sounded like a promise. It sounded like fear. That night back at the penthouse, Ben ran to the door when the elevator opened. He skidded on the wood floor and stopped just short of crashing into Harper's legs. You came back, he said, like he had been counting. Harper crouched. I came back, she repeated. Ben lifted his paper rocket fleet like a parade. I upgraded, he announced. This one has fins. Harper smiled. You are going to leave NASA in the dust. Ben looked pleased, then serious. His eyes flicked to the ring. Do you have to wear that all the time? Harper's hand moved to it instinctively. For now, she said. Ben frowned. Does it make your finger feel trapped? Harper stared at him. He asked questions like a scientist, but he looked at her like someone who needed the answer to mean something. It feels heavy sometimes, she admitted. Ben nodded once satisfied, as if honesty was the only thing he truly required. Ethan appeared behind Ben, jacket off tie, loosened sleeves rolled. His eyes moved from Harper's face to the ring, then to Ben. Homework, Ethan said softly. Softly, Ben groaned and walked away, dragging his astronaut dog by one paw. Ethan stepped closer. Scarlett came to see you, he said. Harper nodded. She told me doors remember. Ethan's jaw tightened. She is warning you. She is warning you, Harper corrected. I am just the way she delivers it. Ethan's gaze held hers. I should not have put you in this. Harper's voice stayed steady. You did not put me in it. I signed. I chose. Ethan's eyes flicked to her hand. You chose a job. You chose money for your mother, he said. You did not choose a fight with my family. Harper reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the smallest paper rocket Ben had given her. She set it on the counter between them. I did not choose a lot of things, she said quietly. I still learned how to stand up. Ethan looked at the rocket, then back at her. Something moved in his expression, a softness that did not last long but felt real while it existed. Harper slid a flash drive across the counter. Here, she said, copies of everything I summarized. I labeled it. I wrote a timeline. I kept it clean. Ethan picked it up like it mattered, like it could cut. This is good, he said. Harper watched his hands, the careful way he held something that could change their lives. She thought of ink, signatures, promises said out loud. Ethan met her gaze. This is enough to confront her, he said. Harper did not smile. It is enough to make her desperate, she replied. Harper did not answer right away. She watched Ethan's thumb roll the flash drive once back and forth, as if he could feel the shape of the truth through plastic. We do not do this in a hallway, she said. We do not do it on a whim. Ethan's gaze stayed steady. I was not planning a hallway, he replied. Harper nodded toward the living room. Ben's voice drifted from his room, muffled by the door, a low hum of narration as he arranged something on his floor. Mrs. Chen's footsteps moved quietly, then stopped. You cannot detonate a family in front of him, Harper said. Ethan's jaw flexed. I know. Harper exhaled slowly. Then we do it in daylight, she said, with counsel, with copies, with witnesses who cannot be bought by a cousin with a smile. Ethan's eyes narrowed approval and tension braided together. Tomorrow, he said, I will speak to the board. Harper's stomach tightened. That fat Scarlett already knows you looked, Ethan replied. See, if we give her time, she will erase what she can. Harper's fingers drifted to the ring. She forced her hand down. Then, do not let her know the meeting is coming. Ethan nodded. Nora will schedule it as a routine finance review. Harper glanced at the paper rocket on the counter. Its sharp fins caught the light. It looked ready to launch and fragile at the same time. Ethan followed her gaze. Ben made that, he said quietly. I know, Harper replied. That is why I am asking you to be careful. Ethan's expression held for a beat. Then he tucked the flash drive into his pocket, like a weapon he did not want anyone else to see. We will be, he said. Dinner that night was simple. Mrs. Chen served soup and bread, then disappeared like she had never been there. Ben ate with both hands around his spoon, focused and serious eyes flicking between Harper and Ethan, like he was reading their faces for weather. Harper asked Ben about school. Ben described a science lesson with the tone of someone reporting a mission briefing. "My teacher says the moon is moving away from us," Ben announced. Harper looked at Ethan. "Is that true?" Ethan shrugged, a little. Ben frowned. "So one day it will leave." Harper kept her voice soft. "Not in your lifetime." Ben's spoon paused mid-air. "That is what people say about everything," he replied. Ethan's gaze dropped to his son, the look sharp with something Harper could not name. He reached for Ben's glass and slid it closer without speaking. The gesture was small. It felt like an apology. After dinner, Ben dragged a blanket into the living room and sat on the rug with his astronaut dog. He clicked through a streaming menu with the seriousness of selecting a judge. "Space documentary," Ben declared. Ethan groaned softly. Again. Ben looked at him unimpressed. "You said we should learn," he replied. Harper sat on the couch and tucked her legs under her, pretending the blanket was only for warmth. Ethan sat at the far end, leaving a polite distance that felt like a wall. Ben started the documentary and leaned against Harper's knee. Harper rested her hand on his hair. She felt Ethan's gaze steady and quiet. On the screen, a rocket launch shook the frame. The sound filled the room, low and powerful. Ben watched with wide eyes. "It is loud," Harper whispered. Ben nodded without looking away. "It is brave," he said. Ethan's throat moved as he swallowed. Harper glanced at him and saw his eyes fixed not on the screen, but on Ben's face, as if he was trying to memorize the exact shape of his son's wonder. Halfway through, Ben's eyelids drooped. He fought it at first, blinking hard like sleep was a weakness. Then his head sank against Harper's leg, his breathing slowing. Harper turned the volume down. The documentary kept playing, but the room's focus shifted to the small body asleep between them. Ethan leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped. "I do not want him caught in the middle," he said. Harper kept her eyes on Ben's face. "Then do not make him a battlefield," she replied. Ethan's gaze held hers. There was a question in it and fear. He did not ask it out loud. Harper answered anyway, quiet. "If she is stealing from your company, she is stealing from him too," she said. "You cannot protect him by letting that stand." Ethan's shoulders eased a fraction. "I know," he said. The documentary ended. The screen dimmed. Harper stayed still, afraid movement would wake Ben and spill the fragile piece. Ethan reached down and lifted Ben carefully. Ben did not wake. His astronaut dog slid to the floor. Harper picked it up and handed it to Ethan. Their fingers touched for a brief second. Warm skin against warm skin. Ethan's eyes flicked up. Harper looked away first. Ethan carried Ben down the hall. Harper stood and began picking up the blanket and the dropped dog's toy helmet, moving quietly, keeping her hands busy. When Ethan returned, the air had changed. The softness of the moment was gone, as if he had zipped himself back into his suit. "We should sleep," he said. Harper nodded. "Yes." She turned toward the hall. "Harper," Ethan said. She stopped. "What?" His voice sounded uncertain, which was rare. "Thank you," he said. "For him. For tonight." Harper's chest tightened. She kept her tone light so she would not break. "It is what friends do," she replied. Ethan's eyes held hers. The ring on her finger caught a small flash of light. Ethan looked at it, then back at her face. "It is what family does," he said instead softly. Harper felt her breath catch. She could not find a safe reply. She nodded once and walked to her room, closing the door with careful quiet. In the dark, Harper stared at the ceiling and listened to the wind press at the glass. She thought of Scarlett's eyes at the lake house, bright and cold. She thought of the warning about doors remembering. She thought of Ethan saying family, with a voice that sounded like he had not meant to let the word out. Morning came with a flat gray sky. Harper made coffees and opened her laptop at the kitchen island. She pulled up her summary again, reading it like a lawyer and a storyteller, at once making sure each step was clear, each line could stand up under scrutiny. Ethan arrived in the kitchen in a crisp shirt phone to his ear. He spoke in a low voice, clipped, controlled. "Nora, routine finance review," he said. "Yes, today, not next week. Today." Harper's singed stomach tightened. She kept her eyes on her screen. Ethan ended the call and reached for his coffee. His hand paused mid-air as if he had realized something. "Scarlett will move," he said. Harper nodded without looking up. "Then we move first," she replied. Ethan looked down the hall. "I am taking Ben out for a few hours," he said. "Playdate. Mrs. Chen will go with us." Harper glanced up. "To keep him away." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yes." Harper's fingers hovered over her keyboard. "Be careful," she said again, and hated how personal it sounded. Ethan's gaze softened for a beat. "Stay inside," he replied. "Lock the door." Harper exhaled. "I live in a penthouse," she said. "No one is breaking in." Ethan's eyes held hers. "People do not always come through windows," he said quietly. Ben appeared in the hallway with his shoes on the wrong feet. He looked proud of it. Harper fixed them without being asked. Ben watched her hands like they mattered. "Are you coming?" Ben asked. Harper shook her head. "Not today," she replied. "Barpod." Ben frowned. "Why?" Harper searched for a truthful answer that would not hurt him. "I have work," she said. Ben considered that, then nodded once, as if work was a language he respected. He held up a paper rocket, then tucked it into his pocket himself like a private talisman. Ethan walked Ben to the door. Mrs. Chen followed, purse in hand, eyes alert. Before the elevator doors closed, Ben waved at Harper. Harper lifted her hand and held the wave until the doors shut. The penthouse felt too quiet when they left. Harper sat at the island again and forced herself back into the numbers. Her mind wanted to run elsewhere, but she kept it on the screen. The smell of coffee, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the steady tap of wind against glass. The elevator chimed. Harper looked up. The doors opened, and Scarlett Cole stepped into the penthouse as if she had been invited. She wore a tailored coat, the color of dried blood, hair-glossy lipstick, perfect. Her expression was tight with anger that had been ironed into a smile. Harper stood slowly. "Scarlett." Scarlett's gaze swept the room, quick and assessing. "Where is Ethan?" she asked. "He is out," Harper replied. With Ben, Scarlett said, and the way she said Ben's name made Harper's stomach turn. "Of course." Harper kept her posture steady. "You should not be here," she said. Scarlett laughed softly and walked further inside. Her heels clicked on the wood floor, each sound sharp enough to cut. "I should not be many places," Scarlett replied, "yet I always seem to arrive anyway." Harper's laptop sat open on the island. Scarlett's eyes flicked to it, then to Harper's hands. "You have been busy," Scarlett said. Harper shifted slightly, placing her body between Scarlett and the screen. "This is my work," she replied. Scarlett's smile sharpened. "Do not play innocent," she said. "I know Ethan put you on this, his little investigator, his little solution." Harper did not blink. "If you have a problem with Ethan, take it up with him," she said. Scarlett stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "Did he tell you why he married you?" she asked. Harper felt the question land like a slap she had been expecting. She kept her face calm. "I know the clause," she said. "I know the trust. I know his grandmother wanted stability on paper." Scarlett's eyes glittered. "Good," she murmured. "So, you understand you are paper." Harper's throat tightened. She forced her voice to stay even. "I understand you are afraid," she said. Scarlett's smile snapped. Afraid, she repeated, almost amused. "You think this is about fear." "It is about money," Harper replied. "And what you did with it." Scarlett's gaze went flat. For a moment, the penthouse felt colder. "You have no idea what you are talking about," Scarlett said. Harper moved one hand to the edge of the island, grounding herself. "The vendors," she said. "The invoices under the approval limit. The repeated language. The shell layers. Your signature." Scarlett's eyes flashed. "That is not evidence," she hissed. "It is a pattern," Harper replied. "And patterns become evidence when someone prints them." Scarlett lunged for the laptop. Harper reacted without thinking. She snapped the screen down and pulled the computer toward herself. The motion was quick and clean. Scarlett's fingers scraped the metal and missed. For the first time, Scarlett's composure fractured. Her breath came fast. Her eyes were bright with rage. "You think you have one," Scarlett said. "You think you can keep him." Harper's mouth went dry. She did not answer. Scarlett leaned closer, voice ablade. "Ethan does not do love," she said softly. "He does strategy. He married you like he signs contracts. And when the clause stops mattering, your usefulness expires." Harper's chest tightened. The word expires echoed in her head like a stamp on an envelope. Scarlett's gaze flicked to Harper's ring. "Pretty," she said, "but temporary." Harper forced herself to breathe. She lifted her chin. "If I am temporary," she said, "then why are you here?" Scarlett's smile returned thin and cruel. "Because I will not be cornered by an outsider," she replied. "Because you are not family." Harper's voice stayed steady. "Family is not a free pass to steal," she said. Scarlett's eyes narrowed. "You are brave," she murmured, "or stupid." Harper held her gaze. "I have been called both," she said. Scarlett's hand moved toward her coat pocket. Harper's pulse jumped. She did not step back. She set her palm flat on the closed laptop and kept her other hand visible ready. The elevator chimed again. Scarlett's head snapped toward the sound. Ethan stepped out first, expression dark. Mrs. Chen followed with Ben, who was talking about planets and did not notice the tension until he saw Scarlett's face. Ben stopped short. His fingers tightened around his astronaut dog. "Why is she here?" Ben asked quietly. Ethan's eyes flicked to his son. "Ben, go to your room," he said. His voice was calm, but there was steel under it. Ben looked at Harper. Harper forced a small smile and nodded once. Ben turned and walked down the hall, slower than usual, as if he did not want to leave her in a room with something sharp. Mrs. Chen followed him, one hand on his shoulder. Ethan moved closer to Scarlett. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Scarlett's face rearranged itself into polite calm. "Visiting family," she replied, welcoming Harper properly. Ethan's gaze shifted to Harper. He saw the closed laptop. He saw Harper's stiff posture. His eyes narrowed. "Leave," Ethan said. Scarlett's smile tightened. "Evie would not like you talking to me like that," she said. Ethan's voice was low. "Evie is not here," he replied, "and neither are your bored allies." Scarlett's eyes flashed. She leaned toward Harper instead, voice soft and venomous. "This is not over," she whispered. Harper did not flinch. "No," she replied quietly. "It is not." Scarlett straightened and looked at Ethan with a smile that did not touch her eyes. "Family dinner soon," she said. "Evie likes traditions." Ethan did not answer. He held the elevator door open until Scarlett stepped inside. The door slid shut. Silence settled like dust. Ethan exhaled once slow. He looked at Harper. "What did she say?" he asked. Harper swallowed. The word expires still pressed against her ribs. "She said I am," Harper replied. "She said I am temporary." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you believed her?" Harper looked down at her ring, then back up. "I believed she wanted me to," she said. Ethan's hands clenched once, then relaxed. "She is desperate," he said, "which makes her dangerous." Harper nodded. "She tried to grab my laptop." Ethan's gaze hardened. He reached for his phone. "Nora," he said as soon as the call connected, "move the board meeting. Today. 2 hours." Harper's stomach tightened. 2 hours, she repeated when he hung up. Ethan looked at her. "She came here because she thought she could scare you into backing off," he said. "I will not give her time to do worse." Harper felt her pulse steady into focus. "Then we need the cleanest presentation," she said. Ethan nodded. "I have copies," he replied. "I have your timeline." Harper lifted the laptop lid again, hands steady. Ink lived in her skin lines again as she grabbed her pen and started marking the last details. From down the hall, a small sound carried into the kitchen. Ben's voice quiet, asking Mrs. Chen something Harper could not hear. The question sounded like fear. Harper's chest tightened. She wrote faster, cleaner, each line a brick in a wall she hoped would hold. Harper printed the last page and held it up to the light, checking for smudges like ink could ruin the entire truth. The kitchen island was covered in paper, timelines, vendor lists, screenshots, notes in tight handwriting that made the margins look crowded. Ethan stood at the counter with his phone in his hand, not looking at it. He was already dressed for the boardroom. Crisp shirt, dark suit, a tie knotted clean. The kind of outfit that said control even when the man inside it was anything but. From down the hall, Ben's door opened. Small footsteps padded into the living room. The television turned on low. A space documentary began playing without anyone asking. Mrs. Chen appeared in the hallway, her eyes moving over the scattered pages. "He is trying to distract himself," she said quietly, meaning Ben. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Keep him in his room if you can," he said. "No elevators." Mrs. Chen nodded once and disappeared again. Harper slid the stack into a folder and placed it in Ethan's briefcase, careful and precise, like packing glass. She handed him a second copy and kept one for herself. "We do not let this leave our sight," she said. Ethan nodded, agreed. His phone buzzed in his palm, once, then again. He glanced down. The muscles in his face shifted. Not fear exactly, recognition. "What is it?" Harper asked. Ethan did not answer. He stepped away from the island and walked toward the balcony door, as if distance could make a call softer. He pressed the phone to his ear. "Hello." Harper watched his back. The lake beyond the glass looked rough and dark white caps breaking in sharp lines. Wind pushed against the panes like an impatient hand. Ethan's shoulders went still. "Yes," he said, voice lower. "I understand. Slow down." Another pause. Harper saw his free hand tighten into a fist at his side. "Is she in pain?" Ethan asked. Harper's stomach dropped. She stood very still, folder clutched against her ribs. Ethan listened, then closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, something had changed. The tightness around them looked older than a single morning. "Thank you," he said, controlled. "I am coming." He ended the call and turned back to Harper. "Evie collapsed," he said. Harper felt cold move through her chest. "At the townhouse." Ethan nodded. "The nurse called? Paramedics are there?" Harper swallowed. Her mouth tasted like paper and stale coffee. "Ben." Ethan's gaze flicked down the hall. "Mrs. Chen," he called, voice sharp. Mrs. Chen appeared immediately, as if she had already been listening. "Take Ben downstairs," Ethan said. "To the lounge. Tell him it is a change of scenery. Do not say anything else yet." Mrs. Chen's eyes held Ethan's for a beat. Then she nodded. "Yes, Mr. Cole." Ben's door opened again. He stepped out with his astronaut dog tucked under his arm, hair still damp from brushing. He saw Harper's folder. Ethan's suit the tension in the air that adults thought children could not smell.
"Are we going
Ethan knelt in front of him, hands on Ben's shoulders. "Mrs. Chen is going to take you downstairs for a bit," he said. "I need to go see Great-Grandma Evie." Ben's eyes widened. "Is she okay?" Ethan's throat moved once. "She is sick," he said carefully. "I am going to check on her." Ben stared at him, then looked at Harper like he was triangulating truth between two faces. Harper crouched beside Ethan. "I will be here when you come back," she said softly. It was the safest promise she could make in the moment. Ben nodded once slow. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a paper rocket. He held it out to Ethan this time. "For luck," Ben said, voice small. Ethan took it. His fingers curled around the paper like it was something alive. Mrs. Chen guided Ben toward the elevator. Ben looked back once. Harper lifted her hand in a steady wave until the doors closed. Ethan stood. "Come," he said to Harper. The car ride to Gold Coast cut through morning traffic that felt unreal. People crossed streets holding coffee heads down against the wind. A couple argued on a corner. A dog tugged at a leash. Ordinary life kept moving, while Harper's chest stayed tight. Ethan drove too fast and too carefully at the same time. The townhouse was bright inside, warm with firelight, and the smell of lavender that could not mask the sterile edge underneath. Staff moved quietly. A doctor stood near the sitting room with a file in his hand. Ethan walked straight to him. Harper stayed half a step behind, close enough to hear, far enough to not intrude. The doctor's face was composed, too composed. "She passed a few minutes ago," he said. The words did not land like sound. They landed like weight. Ethan did not speak. His eyes went to the doorway as if expecting Evie to appear in her blue scarf and tell everyone to stop being dramatic. His jaw tightened. He blinked once slow. Harper's fingers clenched around her folder. Ink pressed into her skin where her pen had rested earlier. She could feel it like a stain that would not wash out. Ethan nodded once, a reflex like he was accepting a business report. "Thank you," he said quietly. He walked into the sitting room. Evie lay on the sofa covered with a blanket that looked too small for the moment. Her blue scarf was folded neatly beside her, as if someone had already made the decision to keep it as a relic. Ethan stood over her and did not touch her at first. His hands hovered unsure like he had forgotten how. Harper stayed near the doorway. She watched him lower himself to his knees and place his palm gently over Evie's hand. His head bowed. His shoulders did not shake yet. Grief came to him like everything else delayed, contained. A woman Harper recognized from dinner at the lake house entered, eyes red-mouthed tight. She said Ethan's name and reached for his shoulder. Ethan stood immediately. His face went blank again. The wall went back up. He spoke to staff. He spoke to the doctor. He answered questions about paperwork, about arrangements, about who should be called. His voice remained even controlled, almost polite. Harper watched him do it and felt her own throat tighten. She knew that kind of control. The kind you used when letting go would swallow you whole. They left the townhouse a couple hours later, with the air outside cutting sharp. Ethan drove back in silence. Harper did not fill it. She held her folder in her lap like a useless shield. At the penthouse, Mrs. Chen was waiting. Ben was in the living room, sitting on the rug with his rockets lined up in a row. He looked up the moment the elevator doors opened. His eyes went to Ethan's face and stayed there. Ethan took a breath. "Ben," he said. Ben did not move. "Is she dead?" he asked. Mrs. Chen's lips pressed together a brief wince. Harper's chest tightened. Ethan crossed the room and knelt. "Yes," he said. "Great-Grandma Evie died this morning." Ben stared at him. His astronaut dog slid from his lap onto the rug. Ben's hands clenched into fists so small it almost hurt to see. "She said she wanted to see the vows," Ben whispered. Ethan's eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, they were red at the edges. "She did," he said. Ben swallowed. He looked down at his rockets. "I told her I would bring more sky," he murmured. Harper sat slowly on the couch, hands clasped tight to keep them from shaking. Ethan's voice lowered. "You still can," he said to Ben. "We can still talk to her. We can still remember her." Ben's face crumpled for a second, fast and shocking like a crack in glass. Then he pulled it back together and nodded, because that was how Ben survived. "I want my dinosaur," he said suddenly, meaning the stuffed one he slept with sometimes when he did not want to admit he needed it. Mrs. Chen moved immediately. "I will get it," she said. Ben stood and walked down the hall without looking at Harper, without looking at Ethan. The astronaut dog stayed on the rug. After Ben's bedroom door closed, the penthouse felt too quiet. Harper placed the folder on the coffee table and stood. She did not know what to do with her hands. She did not know how to stand near a man who had just lost the only person in his family who seemed to see him clearly. Ethan walked to the balcony. He opened the door and stepped into the cold without a coat. Harper followed. The wind hit her face and stole her breath. Lake Michigan churned below, dark and loud. The city lights looked distant and indifferent. Ethan gripped the railing with both hands. He stared out at the water like he was waiting for it to say something back. Harper stopped a few steps behind him. He did not turn. "She called me a coward when Mia left," he said suddenly. His voice was low, rough. "She said I was hiding behind work so I would not have to feel it." Harper stayed silent. Ethan swallowed hard. "She was the only one who believed I could be a good father," he continued. Everyone else treated Ben like a complication. His shoulders moved once, a sharp inhale that did not come back out clean. Harper stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him from behind. She pressed her cheek between his shoulder blades and held him the way she had held her mother's hand, the way she had held Ben after a bad dream. Ethan stiffened for a moment. Then he leaned back into her just slightly, like permission. "I did what she asked," he said, voice breaking on the last word. "You did," Harper whispered. Ethan turned in her arms, his face drawn tight with grief he had been forcing down all day. His eyes met hers. "The trust," he said. "The clause. None of it matters now." Harper felt the air leave her lungs. Her fingers tightened on his coat sleeve. "You do not have to stay in this," Ethan said. "You do not have to keep pretending." The wind shoved against the glass behind them. Harper's ring felt suddenly heavy, like it was made of stone instead of metal. "What are you saying?" Harper asked, at voice thin. Ethan's jaw tightened the wall, trying to rise again, even as his eyes stayed raw. "I am saying you are free," he said. "You fulfilled your part. The promotion is yours. The bonus is yours. I will make sure everything is honored." Harper stared at him. She could hear the lake. She could hear the building's distant hum. She could hear her own pulse fast and loud. Just like that, she managed. Ethan's gaze flicked away, then back pained. "Is that not what you wanted?" he asked, voice tight. "Your freedom." Harper's throat burned. She forced her face into something calm because she could not survive breaking on his balcony. Not tonight. "I understand," she said quietly. Ethan reached toward her as if to stop her, then dropped his hand. Harper stepped back. The cold felt sharper now. She nodded once, a small movement that kept her upright, then turned and walked inside, closing the balcony door with careful quiet so it would not sound like a slam. Inside, the penthouse felt too bright. Harper stood with her hand still on the balcony door handle, listening to the latch settle. The living room lights were on. The television in Ben's room murmured through the wall. A space documentary narrator spoke softly about gravity, calm and certain, like the universe always knew where everything belonged. Harper did not. Mrs. Chen appeared from the hallway, her face composed. Her eyes flicked to Harper's ring, then to Harper's mouth, as if she expected Harper to say something. Harper did not. "Ben is in his room," Mrs. Chen said. "He is watching the same program again." Harper nodded once. The movement felt mechanical. Mrs. Chen hesitated. "Do you want tea?" "No," Harper said. Her voice sounded fine. It did not feel fine. "Thank you." Mrs. Chen's gaze held Harper's for a moment, older and sharper than any assistant or board member. Then she simply nodded and walked away, quiet as a shadow. Harper went to her room and shut the door. The guest room looked exactly as it always had, white bedding, a lamp that made everything look clean. The welcome card on the desk still blank on the back. Ben's paper rocket sat beside it, wings taped carefully, nose pointed toward the window as if it wanted the lake. Harper stood in front of the jewelry dish and slid the ring off her finger. The pale indentation beneath it made her stomach tighten. She placed the ring in the dish and stared at it. The stone caught the lamplight and threw a small, cold spark onto the wall. She opened her suitcase. At first she moved slowly, as if packing required permission. Then her hands sped up, folding clothes with brisk precision. Work blouses, jeans, socks rolled tight. Her mother's worn sweater tucked carefully on top like a promise she could keep. Her phone buzzed. Harper ignored it until it buzzed again. A message from Nora. "Board meeting postponed. My condolences." Harper stared at the words. Postponed. Condolences. Business language wrapped around death, smooth as silk. She set the phone down and kept packing. Her fingers brushed ink stains on her skin. She could still feel the printed pages from earlier, the evidence she had held like a shield. Now it was all sitting in Ethan's briefcase, heavy with consequence. And she was standing alone in a room that suddenly felt borrowed. A soft knock came at her door. Harper froze. She waited for a voice. None came. Then the door eased open just a crack, and Ben's face appeared. Serious. Pale. His hair stuck up in a corner like he had run his hand through it too many times. He pushed the door wider and stepped in, clutching his dinosaur plush to his chest. Not the astronaut dog. The dinosaur a quiet admission. He looked at the open suitcase. His gaze went to the ring in the dish, then back to the suitcase. "You are packing," Ben said. Harper crouched, forcing her face into calm. "I am organizing," she replied. Ben stared at her, the way he stared at the sky when he wanted it to explain itself. "Organizing means leaving," he said. Harper's throat tightened. She reached out and touched the edge of his dinosaur plush, a small, safe contact. "Ben," she said softly. Ben's eyes glistened quick and furious, like he was angry at the wetness. "Great-Grandma Evie died," he said. "So the vows are done." Harper's chest hurt. "Yes," she said. Ben took a breath that shook. "Dad said you are free," he whispered. Harper went still. Ben's voice got smaller. "Are you free from me?" Harper blinked hard. She wanted to say no. She wanted to wrap him up and make the world stop taking things from him. She saw the way he stood so straight, saw it even when he was cracking inside, and she recognized it. A child learning control too early. "I am not free from caring about you," Harper said carefully. Ben hugged the dinosaur tighter. "Caring is not the same as staying," he replied. Harper swallowed. "You are right," she said. "It is not." Ben's face tightened. He looked past Harper toward the hallway, as if measuring the distance to his father. "He will say it is fine," Ben muttered. "He always says fine when it is not fine." Harper's mouth went dry. "Can you do something for me?" she asked. Ben's eyes narrowed, suspicious but listening. "Go sit with Mrs. Chen for a little while," Harper said. "Tell her you want hot chocolate, the kind with the tiny marshmallows." Ben hesitated. "Why?" Harper held his gaze. "Because I need a minute to think," she said. "And you deserve hot chocolate." Ben looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded once, sharp. "Okay," he said, as if agreeing was a strategy, not a surrender. He walked to the door, then paused. Without turning around, he said, "Do not disappear without telling me." Harper's chest tightened so hard it felt like she could not breathe. "I will not," she said. Ben left the dinosaur plush tucked under his arm. Harper heard his footsteps fade down the hall. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands pressed to her thighs. The room smelled faintly of lavender, from the necklace box, faintly of clean linen. Nothing smelled like home. A sound carried through the penthouse. The elevator chime, a door opening. Ethan's footsteps measured and quiet. Harper stood. She did not know why. Instinct, maybe. The need to face the source of the wound. She stepped into the hallway and walked toward the living room. Ethan was there, jacket-off tie, loosened sleeves rolled. He held Ben's paper rocket in one hand, the one Ben had given him for luck. The paper was slightly crushed now from his grip. His face looked like stone that had been rained on for years. He saw Harper and went still. His gaze dropped to the suitcase behind her, visible through her open door. Then to the jewelry dish on her dresser where the ring caught the light. Harper did not speak first. She waited. Ethan's throat moved once. "You are packing," he said. "I am," Harper replied. Her voice was steady. It felt like it belonged to someone else. Ethan nodded, small and controlled, as if he had expected it. "I will have the car take you wherever you need," he said. "Your apartment, the hospital, anywhere." Harper stared at him. "You already decided," she said quietly. Ethan's eyes held hers. "I told you," he replied. "You are free." Harper let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and did not feel like one. "You keep saying free," she said. "Like I am a dog you are taking off a leash." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That is not what I mean." "It is what it feels like," Harper said. Ethan's gaze flicked away, then back. "I am honoring the agreement," he said. "The promotion, the bonus, everything." Harper nodded slowly. "You keep talking about what I get," she said. "You do not talk about what we were." Ethan's eyes hardened, the wall rising. "We were an arrangement," he said, voice low. The sentences hit Harper like cold water. She took a step closer. "Say it again," she whispered. Ethan's mouth tightened. "Harper." "No," Harper said sharper. "Say it again. Say it is just an arrangement." Ethan's gaze held hers. His eyes looked exhausted. "It was always meant to be temporary," he said. Harper's throat burned. She looked at the paper rocket in his hand, the crumpled nose. "So, that is it," she said. "Evie is gone, so the clause is gone, so I am gone." Ethan flinched barely. "That is not fair." Harper's laugh came out rough. "Fair," she echoed. "Scarlett told me I was paper. I told myself she was lying because she wanted me to believe it. But you are standing here proving her right." Ethan's jaw flexed. "Do not let her put words in your mouth," he said. "I did not need her," Harper replied. "I have ears." Ethan's voice went colder, controlled again. "Then listen," he said. "You came here for your mother. You needed stability. I gave it to you. That was the point." Harper stared at him. "And Ben," she said softly. "Was he part of the point?" Ethan's face tightened. His eyes flicked toward the hallway where Ben's room was. He lowered his voice. "Do not," he said. Harper's chest ached. "I am not attacking him," she said. "I am asking you if you understand what you did." Ethan's hand clenched around the paper rocket. The wings bent slightly. He looked down at it, then up at Harper again. "I understand," Ethan said, voice tight. "That is why I am ending it now before it hurts more." Harper blinked hard. Tears threatened, and she refused them. "You think you are saving us?" Harper said. "By cutting me loose." Ethan's eyes flashed with something raw, then vanished. "Yes," he said. Harper nodded once. The movement felt like a door closing. "Then I will make it easy for you," she said quietly. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Harper." Harper turned toward her room, then stopped. She looked back at him. "Ben asked me if I was free from him," she said. Her voice shook on the last word just a little. "He is 6. He should not have to ask that." Ethan's face tightened. He looked like he had been punched and could not admit it hurt. Harper continued softer. "I told him I would not disappear without telling him," she said. "But you are making disappearing feel like the only option." Ethan took a step toward her. His hands opened slightly, as if he was about to reach out, and remembered he did not have the right. "What do you want me to say?" he asked, and the question came out rough. Harper stared at him. The penthouse lights made his face look sharp. His eyes looked older than his years. "I wanted you to say you meant it," Harper whispered. "Even a little. The hand on my back at the gala, the way you watched me with Ben, the kiss, the promises. I wanted you to say they were not just words you spent to buy time." Ethan's breathing changed. Harper saw his chest lift and hold, like he was trying to keep something inside. Harper's voice went steady again because she had to. "I made a mistake," she said. "I forgot the contract was supposed to be the only real thing between us." Ethan's eyes locked on hers. The air between them felt tight enough to snap. Harper felt the ache rise in her throat like a tide. She let it just once. "I was not supposed to fall for you," she said, the words leaving her mouth before she could stop them. "And I did." Ethan went very still. The paper rocket slipped in his fingers, bent wing catching on his palm. He did not look at it. He looked only at Harper as if he had been waiting for those words and also terrified of them. From the kitchen, Mrs. Chen's voice carried softly. "Ben, slow down. It is hot." A small sound followed the clink of a mug on a table, the tiny domestic noise of marshmallows dissolving. Harper's eyes stayed on Ethan's face. His jaw moved like he was trying to speak and could not find the first safe word. Harper turned back toward her room and walked inside the suitcase open on the bed like a mouth waiting to be filled. Harper zipped the suitcase halfway, then stopped. The sound of the teeth closing felt too loud in a room that was supposed to be quiet. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the open drawer where she had left space for the last few things: her toothbrush, the worn sweater, the paper rocket on the desk that Ben had taped so carefully. In the hallway, Ethan's footsteps crossed the wood floor. They slowed near her door, stopped. No knock at first, just silence that pressed its weight against the frame. Then a soft rap, once. Harper did not answer. A second knock, gentler, like he was afraid the wood might bruise. "Harper," Ethan said through the door. Her throat tightened. She stood across the room and opened it halfway. Ethan was there, hair slightly mussed now, jacket discarded. The paper rocket he had crushed earlier sat in his palm, its wing-bent nose softened. His eyes looked raw in a way she had not seen before, not grief alone, something older. Harper kept her hand on the door. "Ben is awake," she said quietly. "He is with Mrs. Chen," Ethan replied. His voice was low. He asked for hot chocolate again. Harper looked past Ethan to the living room. The lights were dim. The lake wind pressed against the glass, making a thin hum. Ethan's gaze flicked to the suitcase behind her. "You meant it?" he said. Harper's mouth went dry. "Yes." A beat. Ethan's fingers tightened around the rocket, then relaxed as if he remembered it was paper. "I heard you," he said. Harper's pulse jumped. "Then you heard enough." Ethan shook his head once. "No." Harper's grip on the door tightened. "Do not do this because you feel guilty," she said. Do not do it because Evie died and the house feels empty. Ethan's eyes flashed. I am not, he said, then swallowed hard as if the words caught. I tried to end it because I could not breathe. Harper stared at him. What? Ethan's voice dropped further. When Scarlett came here and spoke to you like you were disposable, I saw what this was doing to you, he said. Then Evie died, and the claws stopped mattering, and I thought you would leave anyway. I thought I would watch you walk out, and I would deserve it, because I asked you to step into my life like a job. Harper's chest tightened. She kept her face calm out of pure muscle memory. So, you decided to throw me out first. Ethan's jaw flexed. Yes, he said, and the honesty made him flinch. Because I have been left before. Because I watched Ben look at the door every time a woman smiled at him. Because I do not know how to want something without preparing for it to be taken. Harper's throat burned. That is not an excuse. It is not, Ethan said. His eyes held hers. It is the truth. The word truth hung between them. Heavy, clean, dangerous. Harper's voice shook just slightly. You said it was an arrangement. Ethan's gaze dropped to the floor for a second. When he looked up again, his eyes were wet at the edges. That was a lie I used to keep my hands from reaching for you, he said. If I made it clinical, I could pretend it would not hurt when you left. Harper's breath caught. She felt the ringless indentation on her finger like a ghost. And what if I stayed? She whispered. What if I stayed because it felt like home? Ethan stepped closer slow, like he was approaching an animal that could bolt. He stopped just short of touching her. I love you, he said. The words were not dressed up. No charm, no practiced calm, just the sentence bare and shaking in the air. Harper froze. For a moment, she could only hear the lake wind and the distant murmur of the television in Ben's room. Gravity, the narrator said softly, like a lullaby for falling things. Ethan's voice went rough. I love you, Harper, he repeated. Not as a solution, not as paper. You came into this place and made it warmer without demanding anything. You told Ben the truth when I wanted to blur it. You looked at me like I was more than a title. I tried to push you away because I was afraid that if I asked you to stay and you said no, I would not survive hearing it. Harper's eyes stung. She blinked hard and felt one tear slip anyway. Ethan saw it. His hand lifted then stopped in the air waiting. Harper took a breath that hurt. You should have told me, she said. I know, Ethan whispered. Harper's voice tightened. I do not want to be someone you keep only when it is convenient, she said. I do not want Ben to think love is a contract. Ethan nodded slow. Neither do I, he said. I want this to be real if you do. I want you to stay not because you owe me. Not because you signed something, not because Evie demanded a picture-perfect family. I want you because I want you. Harper stared at his face, at the line of tension around his mouth, at the way he held still like one wrong move could break her. I have been falling for you, she admitted, the words quiet and steady now. I fought it. I told myself it was gratitude. I told myself it was proximity. Then you kissed me, and it stopped being a theory. Ethan's breath hitched. Harper swallowed. I love Ben, she added. Not as a role, as a child who watches doors, as a boy who hands out paper rockets like they are prayers. Ethan's eyes closed briefly, like the sentence was both relief and pain. Harper lifted her chin. If I stay, she said, you do not get to end things out of fear and call it protection. Ethan's gaze held hers. Agreed. Harper's voice softened. And you ask before you touch me, she said. Ethan's mouth pulled slightly, almost a smile through the ache. May I, he asked. Harper nodded once. Ethan stepped in and cupped her face with both hands, warm palms against her cheeks. His thumb brushed under her eye, wiping away the tear as if it mattered. Then he kissed her. This kiss did not feel like a ceremony. It was not for witnesses. It was not gentle out of politeness. It was careful out of reverence, then hungry with relief, like both of them had been holding their breath for months and finally decided to inhale. Harper's hands rose to his shoulders. She felt him shake once, just a little, as if the dam inside him had cracked. When they separated, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Harper breathed out shaky. I am staying, she said. A small sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Mrs. Chen's voice low, then Ben's voice answering cautious. Harper pulled back and looked at Ethan. We tell him she said. Ethan nodded. Yes. They walked together to Ben's room. Mrs. Chen stood by the doorway, mug in her hand. She looked at Ethan, then at Harper, and her expression shifted by a degree like she had been waiting for something to settle. Ben sat cross-legged on the rug dinosaur plush in his lap, astronaut dog beside him. His eyes moved to Harper's face, then to Ethan, scanning like a scientist. You were arguing, Ben said. Harper sat on the floor, careful not to crowd him. Ethan sat too awkward at first, then closer his shoulder near Harper's. "Yes," Harper said. Ben's fingers tightened around the dinosaur. "Are you leaving?" he asked Harper, blunt as always. Harper looked at him. "No," she said. "I packed because I thought I had to. I was wrong." Ben stared. "You are staying because Great-Grandma said so," he challenged. Harper shook her head. "I am staying because I choose to," she said. "Because I want to be here with you, with your dad. Not because of a ring or a paper." Ben's gaze slid to Ethan. "Do you choose?" Ben asked. Ethan's voice caught slightly. "Yes," he said. "I choose Harper." Ben watched them both for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a paper rocket, the smallest one, edges worn from being handled. He held it out to Harper. Harper took it gently. "Thank you," she said. Ben's mouth tightened, fighting emotion like it was a foe. "Do not crush it," he warned. Ethan let out a short breath that sounded like a laugh and a sob at the same time. "I will try," he said. Later, after Ben finally slept, Harper stood at her desk and slid the ring back onto her finger. It felt different now, less like a prop, more like a question with an answer inside it. Ethan watched her from the doorway. "We will still deal with Scarlett," he said quietly. Harper nodded. "We will," she replied. The board meeting happened 2 days after the funeral. A closed room, neutral faces, the soft click of a remote as Ethan advanced Harper's slides. Harper did not speak much. She let the numbers speak, the thresholds, the repeated language, the signatures, the shell pattern that threaded through the transfers like a hidden seam. Scarlett arrived confident and left pale. She tried to smile, she tried to laugh, she tried to call it a misunderstanding. The chair of the board did not laugh back. By the end, Scarlett's access was revoked. Security escorted her out. The company's outside counsel filed the next steps. Scarlett did not come home to pack her office. She did not answer calls. She vanished into the city like a shadow that knew how to use crowds. A week later, Ethan received a single envelope at the penthouse. No return address. Inside was a photo of the building, lobby doors printed in glossy black and white. On the back, one sentence in neat handwriting. "Doors remember." Ethan showed Harper without a word. Harper folded the photo and slid it into a drawer. Her fingers left a faint ink smear on the edge of the paper. 3 months later, the courthouse smelled like old wood and new carpet. Harper sat beside Ethan on a hard bench, with Ben between them in a small suit that made him look older than 6. Ben's feet did not reach the floor. They swung anyway, a quiet rhythm that betrayed nerves. When the clerk called their names, Harper stood and walked to the desk. A stack of papers waited. Adoption forms. Signatures required. Harper took the pen the clerk offered, a plain ballpoint that still felt heavy. She glanced at Ben. Ben's eyes were wide and shining. He held his astronaut dog in both hands like a sacred object. Harper wrote her name. The ink did not smear. Her hand did not shake. Ethan signed after her. His letters were still precise, but his fingers trembled at the end. The judge smiled once, small and genuine, and spoke words that made Ben inhale hard. When it was done, Ben looked up at Harper and said, "So you are really mine." Harper crouched and smoothed his hair back. "I am really yours," she said, "if you will have me." Ben nodded fierce. "Okay," he said, like he was granting permission, like he was also begging. That night, back at the penthouse, Ben fell asleep faster than usual. The mobile above his bed was new. Paper rockets hung from thin string, turning slowly in the warm air from the vent. The smallest rocket was in the center. Harper stood in the doorway watching Ethan tuck Ben in. Ethan adjusted the blanket, then paused and pressed his fingers to Ben's forehead for a second, like a vow said without sound. In the kitchen later, Harper washed dishes while Ethan dried their shoulders, bumping lightly in the narrow space. The lake wind tapped the glass in steady rhythms. Ethan came behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, his cheek pressed against her hair. "Are you happy?" he asked quietly. Harper turned in his arms and looked at him. His eyes were still tired sometimes. His grief still lived under his skin, but the way he looked at her was open now. No teeth smile, no wall. "Yes," Harper said. Ethan kissed her slow and certain. Outside, the lake kept moving. Inside, the paper rockets above Ben's bed turned in a gentle circle, and nothing in the apartment felt borrowed anymore. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.